Struggling to get your business online? At Domains2U, we make it easy with fast domain registration, powerful web hosting, and top-tier security solutions. Our hosting solutions ensure speed, security, and reliability with 99.9% uptime and daily backups. Find the perfect domain name and get online in minutes. Get started today at domains2u.com.au.
Good evening, race fans. Welcome back. It is time for round 2 of the Domains2U GT3 Championship right here with MC Motorsport and brought to you by Domains2U.com.au. On behalf of everyone at Simple Racing Broadcast, it's a pleasure to welcome you back for tonight's coverage. My name is Jared Cole and I'm joined in the booth this evening, as always, by my esteemed co-host Nick Patasso. Nick, welcome back to the booth for round number 2, mate. We are here in Belgium. It is, of course, Zolder, and what a track this is.
Well, it's lights, camera, and cue the action to the sound of the GT3 engines echoing through the forest of Belgium. Hello, everyone, and good evening to yourself, Jared. And yes, welcome to round 2 of MC Motorsports. Man, it feels like it's been a long time already, but it's only been a week since we last had round 1, where we were at the wonderful and majestic Imola circuit. But we're coming to you live from the iconic and oh so forgiving Circuit Zolder. 11 corners around this track where the curbs bite hard, the margins are razor thin, and every millisecond counts. Brought to you by Domains2U.com.au. Tonight's racing promises to be fast, furious, and full throttle. The drivers had their first taste of battle in round 1 last time out at Imola, which proved to be such a challenging circuit where we saw the rise of a champion's drive and the battleground of what promises to be an epic season here at MC Motorsports and Simple's racing broadcast. Now, the championship picture is starting to take shape. Who will rise, who will falter, and who will leave Zolder with all the important momentum? Get ready for the action, drama, and edge of your seat racing. This is MC Motorsports Domain2U GT3 Championships, and Jared, I'm not so familiar with the Circuit Zolder, so if you can give us a little bit of a rundown for our viewers at home what we're here to expect tonight on this legendary track located in the country of Belgium.
Look, I was trying to decide how I would describe Zolder to someone who's not familiar with it, and I came up with this, Nick. The best I can give you is when a mummy chicane and a daddy chicane love each other very much. That is what Circuit Zolder is. It is the most ridiculous collection of chicanes I think you will find on any racetrack anywhere, and it makes for a really, really stop-start nature to this track. It's punctuated by, I think, if my memory is correct, and by counting on the track map, 4 chicanes, which doesn't sound like a lot, but the actual size and shape of them is so significant that it does cause any number of issues for drivers, and particularly in the GT3s where the cars are all so closely matched. It's going to make for some very, very intense racing here tonight. I suspect we're going to see more than one incident occur at these chicanes here at Zolder this evening, but if you can survive that, you're actually in for an absolute treat. Zolder is a beautiful circuit, as you said, nestled in the forests of Belgium. It's a purpose-built circuit. It actually hosts a huge range of disciplines here. It's not only been the Formula One track, but also DTM and World Touring Car Championships. It's hosted Superbike World Championships. Hell, it's even hosted Cyclocross Championships here. It is a true multi-purpose track, and it really does provide for some exhilarating racing, which we're hoping we'll be able to bring you here this evening. Of course, tonight's race format, 18 laps in a race number 1, and then race 2, we double the distance, 36 laps with a reverse top 10 based on finishing positions in race number 1. And look, at the moment, qualifying underway. We'll go down, we'll check that out in just a moment, but let's take a look at the standings after round number 1. And this is how it stacks up in the Domains2U GT3 Championship. Reese Wakefield out in front, just barely ahead of Jeremy Washington, and Chad Williams close behind them. Mick Polly, Daniel McCrowan, Danny P, the self-proclaimed crowd favourite, of course, there in P6. Aaron Gilbert, Liam Jensen, Brad Cooper and Dean Powell are your top 10 right now. It's early days, of course, only one round down, still have many more races to go, so many more opportunities for points here in this championship. Tonight, of course, 200 more points on offer, plus, of course, the bonuses for fastest lap, and hopefully not too many penalties impacting everybody's drive for this evening. But without any further ado, I think it's probably time for us to go down and check out some of the qualifying action. Let's head down to the track and see what's going on with some of the drivers out there on the circuit this evening. And I think we might start this evening, if I can find him on track. We'll have to go looking for him, because there is someone I do want to give a very special shout out to. There he is. We'll head down to the track now, and this is Brad Cooper from MC Motorsports. I wanted to give him a massive shout out because he has just welcomed his third lovely little one, a baby girl, joining the family just this week, I believe. So a massive shout out to you, Mr. Cooper. Congratulations. Hope everyone is doing well there. And of course, he's out on track looking to set the best time that he can to set up for race number 1. And yeah, Nick, look, I think it's going to be a very interesting one. We'll go for a full lap with somebody shortly, but this should give you a bit of a feel for just what these chicanes promise you tonight.
Well, that's right. Being a tight and technical, it's an absolutely treacherous. The Circuit Zolder first opening its gates in 1963. Zolder has seen it all, from the roars of Formula One from the 70s and 80s to the bruising battles of touring cars and GT racing, like you mentioned earlier. Obviously, you know, it's precision. It's basically all about precision around this track. As you said, it looks very narrow, and there's not really too many opportunistic moves for overtaking. The only opportunities you're going to get for an overtake is basically coming off those chicanes, those 4 very tight and fast chicanes. It's all about getting the run, sticking underneath the rear wing of your opponent, and then really just getting yourself a slingshot effect just before the next chicane itself, because these chicanes, they pop up quite quickly, and obviously the drivers are really trying to get their handle on these GT cars that they're experiencing in Season 3 here at MC Motorsports, as we have a few drivers setting some good benchmarks time so far. But yeah, at the moment it's basically quite even at the top of the standings, with only the front few covering themselves just by over a second there, with Aaron Schotter inside the top 10, just a second ahead behind Danny P in the 970 Acura, and the Acura seemed to quite a very strong car last time out at Imola. Basically, it rounded up an all Acura podium in race 1 in the sprint race between Danny Poulton, Reese Wakefield and Danny McCrowan, with Jeremy Washington finishing just outside in 4th place. But, you know, there could be a lot of dark horses, and, you know, if we have to go back to what was an exciting race last time out at Imola, we have to go back to that race 2, where anything can be possible, and with a circuit like Zolder, I'm sure that's going to be the possibility, because there's going to be higher risk of mistakes, and there's going to be high chances of a few drivers potentially collecting each other. Hopefully we don't wish that amongst our competitive field of drivers, but you never know. It could become in that situation where someone may have a lock-up, someone might make a mistake, outbrake themselves, maybe just take somebody out. And yeah, we could be seeing quite a fair change up and down the field there. So we could be seeing similar heroics in these races here tonight, Joe.
Absolutely, anything is possible. And as you said, the field again separated by a very narrow margin, although a little more spread out than we did see in round number 1. And I think you'll find that probably just comes down to familiarity with Zolder. It's not been a super popular track on a lot of the official series, and certainly not one that you see many leagues come to quite so often. But yeah, certainly a huge amount to be gained here if you are familiar with it. We went on board for a lap there with last season's champion Jeremy Washington. You saw him just pulling into the pits at the end of that lap, and you can see just how much difficulty these chicanes add to that as well. Look at the sheer amount of debris on track already, and that'll tell you just how much effort these drivers are having to put in to keep these cars on track. Just huge amounts of kitty litter already spread across this circuit, and it is a circuit that demands absolute attention at all times. It can surprise you. It can surprise you. You've got to be quick around here. You've really got to take a huge chunk of the curbs, and you can see there Daniel Harrod getting it all sorts of wrong. But if you do go too far over those curbs, we've got some more of those beautiful sausages just waiting to bounce you from where you are right into a wall, and plenty of opportunities for that to happen. But yeah, it's a very, very tricky track here, Nick, and these drivers, look, if they haven't put in much in the way of practice before this evening, then that is really going to show as they make their way around here tonight. We do have a little while left to go here with qualifying, but we are almost at the end and just about ready to go racing. So in no time at all, I'm sure we'll have our grid finalised and be ready to start the conversation around who we think is the firm favourite for the Race 1 Sprint, as we see Josh Benno making his way down one of the final straights before that last chicane. It's a really interesting pit entry just off to the left of screen there, and it's tricked me up a couple of times, I'll be honest, when we've been watching a bit of the early practice. You'll see a driver shoot off the back and you think they just miscalculated the entry to that chicane massively, when in reality they're just going into the pits. I will try not to get tripped up on that too many times tonight, Nick.
Absolutely, and yeah, whilst it could be the factor of feeding into the pit lane, and obviously the exit of the pit lane, as we just saw one of the Porsche drivers leaving the pit lane, it actually sits on the inside line as well. So obviously drivers do have to be mindful of that the undercut being quite a strong advantage here with our GT3 competitors. We also have to remember that when it comes to actually executing the undercut, it's all about trying to get ahead of other competitors, so competitors that you are not racing against, because anytime you get held up in traffic, that's where you're going to be losing all the time. So you want to be making sure that you're ahead of the apex before the driver behind you gets any opportunity to try and pass you, because there's a long series of sweeping corners. I seem to have lost a little bit of feed there. The sequence of corners that we have is going to be very important for our drivers here tonight, and also the fact that essentially everyone is just going to be just learning as they go, because it is tight. It's such a tight track that one race is not going to be enough, Jared. I feel like all the drivers are going to need to be racing at least, I don't know, how many races should we have tonight? Maybe 3, 4 races. Maybe the first 2 could be sprint races, and then the last one could be a feature race of a lot of laps, because it's going to be challenging for our drivers here. And obviously with the likes of the Acuras up front, Danny P and Reese Wakefield there, the top 2 contenders, the 2 teammates duking it out just like they did in the sprint race.
Absolutely, and a big shout out to everyone joining us tonight in the chat. The letter P is back and calling an FCR 123. Big call at such an early stage, but we'll wait and see how that one plays out. And if I'm not mistaken, that is Scott Stevens, who unfortunately is not racing tonight. Despite that, we've still got a full field. I'm counting 41 cars who look like they may be jumping in. Actually, it looks like 40 even, sorry, that may be jumping in. And that was certainly a bit of a recipe for havoc last week. Is hoping that this week's start, those first couple of turns, are perhaps just a little bit tidier, as these drivers do start to just kind of settle in, I suppose, to the rhythm that is racing here in such a massive GT3 field. We're just watching Ryan Taborski, one of the highest place Porsches right now, sitting in P3, and that open mouth grin has become a real favourite on a lot of Porsche deliveries I've been seeing around the place. I cannot recall for the life of me. I know I've seen it somewhere floating around on the usual social media channels, but I cannot recall for the life of me what car that has made its appearance on most recently that has inspired everyone to start adding it to the front of theirs. It's a good look though, let's be honest.
Absolutely, and we've got ourselves a few early contenders for this race so far, obviously being held by Deckers. I feel like this is going to be quite a challenge for all of the cars that we have amongst the grid here tonight. We've got a few of the Porsches, the McLarens, the Acuras as well, all MR mid-engine rear-wheel drive machinery bolsters. You've got like the big heavy bolsters of the Mercedes, and you've got the Ford Mustang as well. So there's going to be quite a huge difference in what is going to be the perfect car for this track. It feels like the nature of the sliding under oversteery of the MR style cars was you get the big heavy front end but quite understeery front engine rear wheel drive cars in the Mustang and the Mercedes AMG. Will be very challenging to see what these drivers can do. As we see some times flying through quickly. I also do want to give a bit of a special shout out to one of my good friends here on this that is competing in this race tonight for the first time competing in MC Motorsport. It's my good mate and one of my teammates in my GT7 Series E4. Then Chris Lashbrook. In one of the Ford Mustangs is going to be racing here tonight. It's actually his first event. He's debuting at MC Motorsports, and he's having his first run with the boys at ADHD, obviously providing a stunning livery for the man in 552. So he's going to be doing his absolute best to put on a show on his debut appearance here in the world of iRacing, and obviously jumping ship from GT7 Gran Turismo 7 to iRacing is going to be a huge challenge for him, but he seems to be enjoying it. He's been talking a lot about it in the background. He's been really upbeat with himself. So that's the end of qualifying as we go through our race results, Jared. So I just definitely want to give my mate Chris a bit of a shout out there before his first event.
And why not? You know, that's one of the joys of being in the commentary booth. We get to make those sort of decisions. Let's take a look at the grid for race number 1. A crowd favourite, self-proclaimed, of course. Danny P taking pole ahead of Reese Wakefield. Antic Motorsports dominating the front of this evening's grid. Ryan Taborski and Daniel McCrowan on row number 2 ahead of Jeremy Washington and Lachlan Burke. Then Josh Benno and Brad Cooper ahead of Mick Polly and Dean Jacobson rounding out your top 10, with Aaron Schotter and Aaron Gilbert lining up alongside each other on row number 6. We take a look further back. Mitch Curry and Patrick Frame ahead of Dean Powell and Luke Hayden. Then Nathan Bowman and Josh Harris will line up alongside each other ahead of Henry King and Luke Patton. Kyle Ridley and Danyard Harrod ahead of Lee Keldulis and Chris Bleakley. Then Jamie Taylor and Ryan Palmer ahead of James Salhani and Wiley Blair. Trev Mortimer and Aaron James rounding out your 30, with Charlie Milliken and Simon Caplet just behind them. Chris Lashbrook and Dan Mirko 33rd and 34th respectively ahead of Ian Ward and Ronald Long. Then Bradley Minshall and Martin Lipsky ahead of Nick Clydesdale and Aidan Williams. Your safety car drivers this evening, and Nathan Allen and Pete Manette will be ready to go as well. And it is time for us to get ready to go racing here as the drivers grid up for this evening's race. Excuse me, folks. We are waiting now just for the last couple of drivers to jump into the grid here. Almost all ready to go already. So everyone pretty keen to get underway with race number 1. We are just waiting on starters' orders. We will go down to the grid now. And I don't quite know what to expect here, Nick, for race number 1. Turn 1 scares me, I'll be honest. At least it's a nice wide open one here. We're not going straight into one of the chicanes, but it really does. Absolutely. It does represent a significant amount of risk here this evening.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I feel like there's going to be 4 key points when it comes to coming to racing here at Zolder. It's going to be consistency over aggression, attack the curb smartly, save your tyres, and set yourself up for the exits as we are ready for the sprint race. 5 red lights, and we are green flag racing. A strong start there by Reese Wayfield. Gets the jump on his teammate in Danny Polson, while Danny McCrom in the 3rd. Acura leads the way in 3rd place. We've got Jeremy Washington, the reigning championship defending champion, in 5th place. So we see a massive accident back at the back of the track there. We see a couple of contenders out the back really getting themselves caught out by the gravel trap there. We'll have to find out and see who they were, but it looks like it's Going back to green flag racing, I think there's going to be a need for a call of safety cars there. No car has been beached, but it is Reese Wakefield that has gotten the jump over Danny P, unlike what they had at Imola in round 1. It is Reese Wakefield leading the way as they go over the first chicane. And look at those cars flying over the chicanes. The low body height of these GT3 cars is absolutely incredible. The way these cars can actually fly over those chicanes, over the sausage curbs, as we go executing ourselves down towards the back end of the track. Reese Wakefield has the upper hand on his teammate, whilst the rest of the pack is lagging behind because the top four rather, have started to run away from the rest of the field.
Absolutely, they have, and this is where it starts to really add up so quickly. If you get that bit of clean air, getting caught up in traffic here with such a huge field is what's going to cause this field to really space out. Jeremy Washington currently sitting in 5th. Is right on the tail of Ryan Taborski, but then the rest of the field you can see just starting to filter through now. We will go back and take a bit of a look at some of those earlier incidents if we get a moment, but we are underway here in race number 1, lap 2 of 18, and already the field's starting to spread out a little bit. Taborski starting to drop back through the field. Let's try and keep an eye on all of the action as we take a look a little bit further back into P23. Wiley Blair making the move at the moment. He's up 5 spots since the start, as is James Salhani just ahead of him. So great start for those guys. Kyle Ridley is another one. The McLaren in P15 currently is up 6 spots from the start. Those that have struggled a little, Aaron Schotter, I believe, got caught up in that early incident. He's down 5 spots. And then further back, Aaron Gilbert, unfortunately, one of the couple of cars caught up in that turn 1 carnage, down 23 to 35th. And then, of course, Luke Hayden down 23 spots to 39th, so getting caught in that as well. Not the start they would have been hoping for, but we are settling in, and you can see already the gap starting to open up out in front as the lead contenders here tonight start to just stamp a little bit of authority around Zolder. Mick Poley right now heading up, an absolute beast of a train. He's got all of the Porsches coming with him in Taborski, Benno, Burke and Cooper right behind. Mitch Curry in 10th is the Ford Mustang, who's probably feeling a little out of place in amongst that pack, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can just see it's a whole dominant top 9 MR-driven cars, with the Acuras leading the way just ahead of one of the McLarens, which is the reigning champion in Jeremy Washington, running the number 1 on the McLaren 720, as well as a whole gaggle of Porsches from 5th all the way down to 9th. As we see one of the Porsches in the background go spinning around, that is Brad Cooper. So the one that's just welcomed, Brad Cooper, who's just welcomed a young girl into his world and his family. Unfortunately, just not the welcoming party that he wanted from the rest of the competitors here. Drops him all the way back down to the back of the field. Sadly for him, so a lot of big recovery work for him to do while he has to wait for the whole field to go past and just waiting for them to make any moves, make any inroads on the rest of the field. As we see, Danny McCrum has actually made a move on Danny P with something we just missed off cameras there, but that is a position change for P2. Danny McCrum in car 50 of the Acura NSX is up to P2, and some early struggles here for the pole man, with Danny Poulsen going from 1st to 5th, and we're only 3 laps deep, 3.5 laps into this race, and so far just some early signs of potentially some confusion in this sprint race so far for Danny P.
Take a little bit further back in amongst the pack. This is the battle for 11th right now, and you can see this is where it starts to get just a little bit crowded with all of these cars struggling to separate themselves from the pack. Reese Wakefield there in front enjoying the clean air, 1:27.89, fastest lap of the race so far. All of these drivers really struggling to separate themselves, and this is the thing with Zolder. You can't get it done at one of these corners. You do really struggle to make the pass. Let's go back to lap 1 and take a look. It looks as though Luke Hayden may have been the first to go off track, and you can see here he's actually he's had to run wide to avoid it. Looks like it might have been Henry King actually who was the first going sideways there, and Aaron Gilbert also getting caught up. If that was, no, it was Aaron Gilbert actually just getting caught between a couple of cars, and unfortunately spun sideways. Thankfully no massive damage in amongst all of that. And then a little further on, Bradley Minshall having a big moment, big collision, and ends up facing the wrong way. Very lucky not to do more damage, but just a bit of a nudge, and almost pinballing back onto the track. We'll get him underway again. So not the start a lot of these drivers would have been hoping for, I'm sure. At the moment, though, plenty of good battles going on. This is Lachlan Burke and Mick Polly battling it out for P7. And Mick Polly is absolutely looking to put the move on. He goes up the inside, late on the brakes, charges on through, and he'll get the drive out of that corner as we head back down this second to last straight. And the gap's just beginning to open up. A couple of seconds here, a couple of seconds there. And only a few drivers really staying in touch with each other across that top 10, but as soon as you get to about 10th with Mitch Curry, that's where it all starts. And you can see this absolute train of cars that we've got going on from about that P10 spot all the way back. In fact, Dean Jacobson out front, you can just see him at the bottom of the screen there from JTIT Race on Oz. He has, FB Electrical rather, Race on Oz. Dean Jacobson is probably looking in the mirror a little bit, just perhaps a little concerned as to just how many cars will go past if he does put a foot wrong here, because it is a very, very tightly condensed big pack.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's great to see how competitive everyone is. There's obviously the 2.3 separating Reese Wayfield over Daniel McCrom in P2, as we see another excursion being a bit of dust being kicked up in the background at turn 4, but as they come up towards turn 5, the Klein chicane up towards turn 6 and 7, where they get to the second part of the chicane here. It's just all about settling in, try to get yourself late on the brakes there, because it's going to be very, very tricky. It's all single file racing at the moment, but it's all about these slingshot effects from the exit of turn 7 as we get ourselves a replay, as we see one of the drivers there, the 284 again. So that's twice already in that same corner. We have to mention as well, that's twice it's happened in the same corner where he's actually gone off and run wide and just slid through, sadly for him. So not the race that the 284 wanted to have in his Ford Mustang in the sprint race, but lots of work to do in the feature race. But it's all about setting yourself up for the last chicane here, the Jackie X chicane. Just set yourself up, it's the left and then it's a sharp right, and then it's just put a foot to the power and flat on the throttle all the way down back to turn 1 and getting yourself setting up for a run into turn 1s, turns 2 and turn 3. As we see the two Porsche teammates in Ryan Taborski, and then we have Joshua Bernal in 5th and 6th place battling it out.
Not teammates. This is what I mean about the proliferation of that grinning little mouth on these Porsches. These guys are actually not teammates at all. Ryan Taborski entered as a privateer at the moment, but Josh Beno for FCR Simsport, unless of course these guys haven't updated their team affiliations for this race. It's just become ridiculously popular, dropping that look on there. Monte Cristo mentioning in the chat, of course, iRacing run that livery in the IMSA series in real world racing, and certainly plenty of inspiration coming in. Lee Caldulis has had an off, just getting caught up in that gravel, and you can see the amount of debris still on tyres, so thankfully not much to it, just avoids getting collected there. And I think that was Nick Clydesdale just shooting past in the background, but look at the amount of debris on track.
So there's a lot of gravel being kicked up there, Jared. Obviously not knowing so much about the physics and the simulation with the game on the iRacing platform, but does it actually impact the way the cars handle when you go over the gravel when that's being laid out on the circuits? Like, just for example, when it comes to marbling, the tyre degradation, when you go offline through the marbles, yes, it's slippery and you can understeer into the gravel trap or into a barrier, but do the marbles have the same effects on this console, on this simulator?
They absolutely do. So every time you see these drivers finding themselves offline and going over some of that debris on track, they are absolutely dealing with reduced grip, and depending on just how much they have the car loaded up at that point, the results may vary anywhere from a slight loss of traction to complete sideways and into the wall. It really just depends on where you are on the track and what's going on at any given moment. As we see Nathan Bowman still tied to the back of Josh Harris's ADHD Racing Mustang, and behind him Kyle Ridley and McLaren, giving him just as much grief as we go further back through the field and into the next pack, with Daniel Harrod leading out one of his teammates in Patrick Frame, both from MC Motorsport, and Henry King from Team Jim Shifters, not too far behind in the Lamborghini, which just quietly one of the better looking cars on track. Only Lamborghini on track here tonight, and just about the only one I believe entered in the series so far. it's a real shame. I think the Lamborghini deserves more love here with the GT3s, but that is the nature of people going with the best performing car that they can. And unfortunately, Lamborghini not really getting the refresh from iRacing that perhaps I'd like to see it have.
Well, I guess it's the same love affair that we have for the Lamborghini Huracan, but also is the shock of what we described last round of not seeing the Ferrari 296 being a contender for Season 3 of the MC Motorsport's GT3 Championship, where it was highly contested in Seasons 1 and 2, but Season 3 it seems to be absolutely nowhere. So there's a couple of balance of performance updates, driver feels, some not getting used to the car, some not being in favour of the car, that it just gets to it got to the point where the next alternative would have been potentially with the likes of the Porsche 992, the McLaren 720, or even the Acura NSX, and we're seeing quite a fair few Acuras in this series as well. So it's actually been quite a good car of choices. If I have to count up a tally of cars, it's going to take quite a long time to see what is the dominant car, but I feel like we all know the German manufacturer of the Porsche is a very heavily favoured and we could say potentially safe car for this GT3 racing that we have here. Now we go for a battle pack for those in the battle pack for P9 for this race, led by Mitch Curry in 9th place. Oh, actually, Joshua Harris, apologies there, who's rounding up inside the top 10. So there's a strong battle pack there that is getting the 10th position, that all-important 10th. That it can lead to pole position in race 2. So as it currently stays, Josh Harris will be starting the feature race on pole position in race 2 on the 36th lapper coming up at the end of the sprint race. So it's all vying for that position, and if you can put yourself in that hotly contested spot to try and get yourself a good result, as we saw last time out at Imola last round. As we have one of the Acuras that's gone off there, that's Patrick Frame for Antic Motorsports there, just going off wide on turn 1, sadly. Not working, not really adapting to those conditions just yet. Halfway into the race so far, it is Reese Wakefield, Daniel McCrone and Danny Bolton top 3, and Jeremy Washington in 4th place. So the top 4 from what we saw last time out at Imola in the sprint race, but just a bit of a change of order at the moment between those top 4 drivers, with Reese Wakefield leading his teammate by a very comfortable margin, 3.3 seconds over Danny P. But Danny P looks like he's fired up his tyres. He's shaking off all the dust and shaking off a bit of rust and a little bit of lacking of tyre grip and tyre pressures. So now he's onto the back end of Daniel McCrone. So you see a lively battle pack there, the battle pack that's never ending here. We can just see Joshua Harris has just lost that position to Nathan Bowman in 10th place there. We can see a few of the Mustangs, the Mustang right behind Dean Powell looking to capitalise there, as we also have the McLaren of Kyle Ridley looking to try and size himself up and move into turn 1 behind Joshua Harris for ADHD. Is he going to get the move done? No, he's going to stick behind. He's going to set himself up for a nice run. Oh, I thought he was going to try and hold around the outside. It goes for an inside move. That is Ryan Palmer in the background. Looks like he's just gone for a little bit of a spin. 360 no scope for the man for ADHD Racing, but almost Kyle Ridley made that move stick there. Would have been a very nice run there from the outside to the inside of turn 2, but couldn't get it done, sadly, for him. Nathan Bowes is running away with the top 10 at the moment. He's already put a second on Joshua Harris in a few corners.
Big move here. Dean Powell looking for an inside line. Got the pace there, adds to Darren Schotter. Kyle Ridley managing to hold him off for now, but Powell continues to hustle as we head towards the next in this series of chicanes. And Dean Powell just needs to get a little bit closer in that Blackhawk Motorsport Mustang to be able to put a move on effectively through there, but you can certainly see that Ridley is struggling a little with pace. Let's go back and take a look at the iRaptor Zones replay for that incident with Patrick Frame earlier. This is into turn 1, and just overcooking it under brakes gives you an idea of just how easy it is to outstrip the limits of grip here at Zolder. There's a little bit of debris around, but not so much inside turn 1 there, but gets it underway. And then, of course, not long after that, Ryan Palmer in an almost identical incident, just overcooks a little at the apex, and once you start sliding on these things, that's about all she wrote. Thankfully, no damage done. He's back underway. Very close to the wall and take that front bumper off, but You know, it's the way the boys at ADHD race, right on the edge at all times. Gets underway in the Mustang once again. Kyle Ridley now on the back of Josh Harris as Aaron Schotter has dropped right away. We'll have to have a look and see if we've missed a little bit of an excursion there. What we have missed is Aaron Gilbert having a bit of an issue further back in the pack as well. But it looks as though, and I'm just trying to decide what on earth has happened to Dean Power there, and how he's dropped so far back.
Yeah, very interesting. Looks like maybe we potentially would have gone for an overtake or tried to go for an overtake on Kyle Ridley for position 12 for this race, but unfortunately for him, just must have made a mistake and maybe just overcooked it in one of the corners. We'll have to find a replay for that very soon, as we do believe we have one right now. And there you go, it's turn one again.
Turn one does it again, so that is how Aaron Schotter's made it past, and unfortunately for Dean Power, that has cost him a lot of positions. Finds himself all the way back down to 23rd now, so dropping almost the same distance in the field again as where he was sitting initially. That is rough.
Absolutely. So if we thought the turn one, the chicane, turn one, turn two chicane at Imola was causing problems for some drivers, I feel like we've got a new corner that is causing a lot more pain for the drivers here. It's the turn one at Zolder, Erst links in at turn one. It's obviously they're on lap 12 and 18. Dean Power, another victim, caught out in some that I'm sure we've missed plenty of other drivers having mistakes at turn one. See if all of our drivers here can go through that without any problems. It must be a very high sensitive throttle application that you have to get through the corner. Is it maybe potentially there's a bit of gravel being kicked up with the drivers going wide, understeering on turn one, and then getting themselves into the barriers and kicking up a bit of dust and a little bit of gravel, laying it on the track, maybe making that racing line a little bit slippery for some of the drivers.
Certainly nothing we've been able to see from our perspective. You'd usually expect it to be quite a bit of debris strewn across there, but coming off that front straight, there's really not an opportunity to drag too much on. I do wonder, because it is a fairly high-speed corner, and you're under heavy brakes. I think these drivers perhaps just overestimating the amount of grip available under brakes, and really, again, because of the camber of the corner.
So Kyle Ridley has made the move on Joshua Harris there. I've just seen the timing of Morris's go there. Flash up, yeah, he has. He's actually done it into towards 9 and 10, but Harris is coming back, shows a nose there. Oh, chops it off there. Nicely done there by Kyle Ridley. Great defensive driving there, and good car control by Josh Harris, but now that puts him vulnerable for him and Aaron Schotter, who's going to try and make a move around the outside. Is a little bit slippery on the inside. Can he get a bit of a switchback? If he holds around the outside, it'll set him up nicely for a turn two inside move there. So we have one of the Porsches in the background there, Henry King running wide, and these two drivers are still going side by side. Great racing action here between Joshua Harris and Aaron Schotter, still going side by side through turns 3 and 4. They finally come to Bianchi Bosch in turn 4, and finally the center limit has been done. It is Aaron Schotter ahead of Joshua Harris there. Great move there, as we have another battle back here between Lachlan Burke and Mick Poley. Look, through the chicane they go. Nice way to park the car into the chicane there. Well done by Lachlan Burke to not give Mick an opportunity to re-overtake him in the 911 Porsche, a 992 for Mick Poley, but that's a position gain for Lockie Burke, and he's now got to try and charge up with about 5.5 laps to go to the end of the race to try and catch up to his fellow Porsche and Ryan Taborski. But we have Danny P, who's going to try and do a similar move to what Aaron Schotter did to Joshua Harris, but he can't do it, unfortunately. He has to stick behind Daniel McCrory, but can he go for the inside? No, he doesn't. Just chops the nose off there. Some great racing action here between the two Acuras that featured on the podium in the sprint race at Imola, looking like to be an all Acura whitewash here at Zolder Circuit. But we'll have to wait and see. Lap 14 of 18, Reese Wakefield leads Daniel McCrory, leads Danny Polton, but it's a highly contested battle pack between those two Acura drivers.
Further back, we come back to turn 1, and Luke Patton looking for a way past Daniel Harrod and James Salhani. And Salhani getting through on Harrod. These guys are almost looking like going 3 wide. The two McLarens and the Mustang with another, would you believe, Acura in Wiley Blair right behind them. This is going to be very interesting if this is how they intend to enter the next chicane.
Oh, it's going to be so close there. One of the Acuras trying to go almost potentially go through. Wide. Whoa, one of the McLarens goes full send at the Ford Mustang. So whilst we saw James Solani try to defend from one of the Acuras, he actually made a gain on the Ford driver there in Daniel Harold in for MC Motorsport. He actually gained a position there, so that was actually a very nice move there by James Salhini in the car 188 McLaren 720. So nicely done there. That caught me by surprise. He was under threat from one of the Acuras, but he said, you know what, I'm not going to take that pressure. I'm just going to make a move instead. Just try what's the best security to get rid of an Acura? Make an overtake on the driver ahead of you.
And this is the risk when you've got these packs so closely knit together. The slightest mistake is you try and make your way past another driver and someone's got to come out of nowhere and snap that position right off you before you even realise what's going on. As Daniel Harold makes his way down the home straight, Wally Blair right on his tail right now as we go into turn one. One more time, we've got a few more laps to go here. You can see plenty of dust and dirt being kicked up by drivers running wide on turn one, which says to me that I think a few of these drivers may be getting caught out by the pace of turn one and perhaps a bit of a lack of grip available there. It'll be interesting to talk to hopefully our race winner and get a bit of insight as to
I was going to say, Joe, I think there's a bit of dust and dirt being kicked up in the commentary booth there at the moment. Sounds like we've been...
My apologies here to my co-commentator as he listens to hacking and coughing, which none of you are going to hopefully to listen to. It's a bit of a rough night tonight in terms of health here in the commentary booth, but we will make it through for you.
Absolutely, and as we have some of our contenders here, the top three are still keeping it in close quarters. They're still keeping nicely there. So even though Danny McCrome is actually battling Danny Poulton to keep P2, he's actually not losing too much time to Reece Wakefield. On the previous lap there, actually we go back to the fastest laps there, 127.896 set by Reece Wakefield, but on the previous lap there, they're very even, 28.6 versus 28.64 for Reece Wakefield, 28.66 for Danny McCrobin, and 28.663 for Danny Poulton. So it is very close, but on the last lap there, Jeremy Washington, the reigning champion from season 2, 28.4, he's not really been anywhere at the moment, 4.3 behind Danny Poulton, and what we saw at Imola was a much stronger performance by the reigning champion. There seems to be a little bit nowhere so far in the sprint race, but obviously keep an eye out on him for the feature race coming up in a matter of moments, 2.5 laps before the end of the sprint race. But it is quite heavily contested there. We can see there Reece Wakefield losing still a bit of time there, under 3 seconds now. So I wonder if he's starting to overheat these tyres a little bit, and it's just bringing in the back two in Daniel McCrum and Danny Poulton, the two Daniels, second and third players, catching Reece Wakefield just ever so slightly.
You've got to wonder if maybe at this point Reece Wakefield is just taking his foot off the throttle a touch, knowing that he's feeling fairly comfortable, a few seconds of lead, just 2 laps left for him to run. He's not going to want to put that position 1 result at risk by overstepping in that Acura, so I suspect he's probably just taking it a little bit easier so as not to risk the number 1 finish, and letting Daniel in P2 and P3 respectively battle it out here for the remainder of the podium. At this point it does look like McCrowan has got Danny P fairly well covered, but I think it's all Reece Wakefield here tonight.
Oh, nice exit there by Danny Poulton there. He might be able to get a run on him on the second part of the chicanes there. We'll keep an eye on that as the delta is starting to come down a little bit. But as you said there, they're starting to fend off a little bit of pressure. Is Reece Wakefield just having a bit of a moment of keeping it calm, finishing, getting to the end of the checkered flag there, as we see Jamie Taylor go for a bit of a spin there at the exit of turn 1, going into turn 2. Feel like a bit of contact with one of the Mercedes drivers.
Slightly assisted there on that spin, I think.
But, absolutely.
Not what Jamie Taylor would have been hoping for. I'm sure Race Control will be taking a look at that one as we look back at the battle for 13th. Josh Harris still holding off Henry King in that Lamborghini from Team Jinx Shifters, and it really needs to get a move on, because this is now the last lap. Reece Wakefield has just started the final lap. Danny P here both onto that as well. It looks as though Danny P has resigned himself to P3 at this point. Just letting that gap open up a little bit. Whether there's been a slight mistake there that we've missed, perhaps.
Yeah, 29.1, sorry, 191 on the last lap there by Danny P, compared to Daniel McCrum at 28.5. So, you know, very good consistency by Daniel McCrum in P2. So, could definitely set himself up for a really strong feature race here, but is being led by Reese Wakefield leading this race. Whoa! Over the sausage curve goes Danny Poulton. That was an aggressive amount of sausage being taken by that Acura NSX there. I'm sure Danny P would not have enjoyed one single bit of that sausage curve and any sausages that he has in his life there. But rounding up in P3, Danny Poulton, wow, that is a heart-in-mouth moment there by the crowd favourite in the Acura. But it's been a troublesome start for Danny P, but not so much for Reese Wakefield, who has been leading the charge, got the jump from pole position, from P2, made the jump into turn 1 and took that P1 away from Danny Poulton, whilst we had Daniel McCrum take P2. But rounding up the final chicane there, the Jackie Inc chicane, it is Reese Wakefield for the Acura for MC Motorsport takes the victory in the sprint race. Well done to Reese Wakefield. Daniel McCrum rounds up in P2, and Danny Poulton just holds on to P3, maybe with a bit of a damaged, maybe with a damaged floor on that Acura NSX after abusing that sausage curve there. Joey Washington rounds up in a consistent P4 and a solid P4 there, 9.5 seconds ahead of Joshua Bernard and Ryan Taborski. Lachlan Burke, Mick Poley, Mitch Curry, and Nathan Bowman, who was rounding out the top 10. So it's going to be Nathan Bowman and Mitch Curry front row. That's going to be an exciting start for the sprint race here, Jared. But as the rest of the field is lining up and crossing the start-finish line, what a victory that was for Reese Wakefield. And a very close call there by Danny Poulton. He made a very similar mistake at the end of race 1 at Imola. It almost came back and bit him hard in the sprint race here at Zolder.
Absolutely, and certainly not the finish Danny P would have wanted. You know, I take back anything I said about him perhaps taking it a little easy towards the end there. Absolutely wasn't. He was still pushing hard. We'll go and we'll have a chat to Reese Wakefield, who joins us from inside the cockpit on his cool-down lap. Reese, congratulations on the win in race 1 here tonight as a starting point. Made it look pretty easy out in front. How did it feel on track?
Thank you. It definitely wasn't easy. I owe it all to my absolute mega launch. I just got a better jump off the line than Danny did, and then I kind of saw him behind me into turn 1, and then just hoping to keep it there. And then Daniel McCrowan and Danny P were fighting at the back, which kind of gave me a buffer ahead. So I just had to keep it calm, keep it on track, try not to get the slowdowns into the middle chicane, and that's what we did.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nick here in the commentary booth there, great victory from yourself, Reese. Obviously, you got that jump, you got that launch going into turn 1. And as you said, those chicanes are quite deadly. 4 heavy braking zones in the chicanes there. How tough is it actually to try and get that car planted to where you want to put it, especially with your Acura being very nimble through the corners? But we did see that with Danny P, he just literally launched himself into the stratosphere on the final lap there in one of the chicanes there. It's very risky there. So is that the kind of risk that you guys take when it's on track by really abusing those curves and trying to get the best lap time without avoiding a penalty?
Yeah, 100%. It's really difficult to judge where the car's going to be heading into the chicanes. The first chicane, if you come up too short, you're not going to carry enough speed. If you go in too deep, you're going to go too wide and absolutely send it to the moon on the second apex. So it's a really fine area for the first chicane. There is like a little bit of a way you can do it. If you perch your car to the left, it'll lift the front right up and it should kind of go over the curb nicely. But it's a very high risk, high reward type situation. And then with the second chicane, there's 2 types of slowdowns you can get. You can get one on entry onto the first apex, and then one if you cut the second apex too hard. So it's a really hit and miss. Me personally, I just played it safe and knew where I wasn't going to get either a rocket boost to the moon or a slowdown. So I just try to play it smooth lap after lap.
Yeah, absolutely. And just before we round up, obviously coming into the feature race now, 36 laps starting in P10, and you've got your teammates in Danny P and Daniel McCrum right ahead of you, and the contender for the championship in Jeremy Washington ahead, what is going to be your tactics for the opening few laps? Are you looking for a great launch? Are you looking to sit behind? Are you going to try and maybe play a bit of strategy with a fuel saving amongst your competitors, or what do you feel like is going to be the best resource when it comes to 36 laps around here?
Well, my launches have seemed to be pretty good, so I'm going to play into that a little bit, I think, off the line and see where we are at the end of turn 1. If I can slot in behind someone, I'm more than happy to do that. Like, I'm not trying to risk anything major in the first couple laps. I just want to get through it, get into a groove, settle down. If there's potential for fuel saving, I'll do that. But if I get some clean air, I'm just going to run my own race and see where we end up.
Nicely done. We'll look out for it. Reese, congratulations on the win in race number 1 here this evening. Starting in P10 in race number 2, we'll let you get to it, but hopefully be chatting to you again at the end of race 2 if you can make it all come together here for the second half of this evening's racing. Congrats again on your win here tonight.
Thank you very much, guys.
Reese Wakefield taking out the win there in race number 1, and I think, Nick, when we take a look at the field here, you know, Wakefield, Macron, Danny P, and to a lesser extent Jeremy Washington, but the top 4 really just absolutely dominating. You know, Josh Benno finds himself 17 seconds back in P5, so to suggest that those top 4 aren't going to be able to come through from the back half of that front 10, it's really going to be a question of how much traffic holds them up, I suspect.
Yeah, and it's also going to be the fact how fast they can actually execute what we can say the slower traffic, even though the top 10 are very highly respected caliber drivers here at MC Motorsports. By no means they are slow at all. That's why we are in this very competitive championship here. Obviously, separating themselves 5th all the way down to 10th place was only a mere 13 seconds, so still quite close between those drivers there. But at the same time, you have to remember that the top 4 are going to be the 4 contenders in this, what is going to be a heated championship in season 3. So there could be a little bit of risk versus reward by some of the drivers there. I feel like more the likes of Danny Poulton, obviously taking victory in the sprint race at Imola, had it all go downhill at Imola in the feature race, and here finishing P3. I think he's got a little bit of room for improvement to try and actually stamp his authority and just say to his competitors, I'm here to race, I'm here to show what I've got. And obviously being one of the competitive GT Pro drivers competing on the representing Australia in the GT World Championships, I feel like he's got something to prove. I feel like he's got something to really try and show the rest of his championship contenders that he is a threat for the title at season's end. But also, don't take your eyes off Jeremy Washington there. That the McLaren could throw up a bit of a conundrum in this feature race, obviously coming from the back of the field, from the second half of the top 10. But watch for him to climb through, because his consistency from the feature race at Imola was what really got him in that perfect position at the end of the checkered flag.
Absolutely. As we take a look through the grid for race number 2, of course, the reverse top 10, Nathan Bowman and Mitch Curry will be starting at the front for this 36-lap race. Then Mick Polly and Lachlan Burke ahead of Ryan Taborski and Josh Benno. Jeremy Washington and Daniel Poulton ahead of Daniel McCrowan and Reese Wakefield. Then the remainder of the field, as they finished in race 1, Kyle Ridley and Aaron Shodder ahead of Josh Harris and Henry King, then James Salhani and Daniel Harrod. Blair and Patton line up 17th and 18th, then Chris Bleakley and Charlie Milliken rounding out the top 20, with Trev Mortimer and Simon Kaplan ahead of Patrick Frame and Ian Ward. Further back through the field, Aaron James and Dean Powell ahead of Chris Lashbrook and Dean Jacobson, then Ronald Long and Ryan Palmer, as we go down to the grid, because they are about to get underway, not waiting around for anyone here this evening. All the drivers very keen to get underway, and we are off and racing for race number 2 here. 36 laps begins, and already the drivers on the grid starting as we go 3-4 wide. It's a huge start, but here we go as we get a lot of movement through the pack and through that turn 1, and thankfully everyone making it through in one piece. Although a lot of drivers ending up missing out on a spot as they all try and work themselves out. But towards the front of the grid, keep your eyes on Reese Wakefield. He's up 2 spots already. Aaron shot up a couple of spots as well.
In one corner there for Reece Wakefield. That's a great start there by the sprint race winner. I was just keeping an eye on that. He did mention his launches at the top of the broadcast at the end of the race, and that really proves that his launches were so good. He's actually gained 2 positions going into turn 1, so keep an eye on him. But yeah, great start there by Nathan Bowman, Mitch Curry, Mick Poley, our top 3 at this current stage. No gains or losses between those top 3 drivers, as we see contact with Daniel McCrom and Danny Poulton as well. So the 2 that were battling it out for P2 in the first half of the race, and there's damage on car 50. Oh, this is one of the main championship contenders in Daniel McCrom has gotten contact from Danny Poulton and has lost the complete rear end of this car. That car is more than damaged, and it is game over for Daniel McCrom. Crabbing. Oh,
I don't know if he's realised he's missing that rear wing. And once you lose the rear wing off these GT3 cars, that is it. That back left wheel now is not spinning. Daniel McCrowan, you've got to think, is out of this one for this evening, but it will depend very much on what repairs can be done.
That is so unlucky for Daniel McCrowan. Astonishing P2, but contact with Danny Poulton going into the corners there. A very sad moment there for a key contender for this race victory here in the feature race. Is getting it all crossed up, sadly, at turn 8, and Terrell Bosch getting caught up with Danny Poulton, and I'm sure that's going to be an investigation being looked at by our live here tonight to see what implications are going to have by Danny Poulton and MC Motorsport.
Yeah, Daniel McCrowan, not what he would have wanted at all for the start of his second race. There are a couple other incidents there as we go back to the iRacing Designs replay. Brad Cooper off the start into the wall with Luke Hayden. So that one didn't even make it to turn 1, and unfortunately, with the field this big, not surprising to see off the start line, but both of them underway again reasonably comfortably. And while we were watching Daniel McCrowan struggle to get that Acura back around and to the pits, it looks like Wiley Blair also had a bit of a moment. We'll take a look at that one and see if we can pick up just what's happened here. It might just be, no, in fact, it's just that he's entered the pits. iRacing picks these up in interesting ways once you get below a certain speed, so thankfully all intact. But in saying that, no sooner have we looked away, Ryan Palmer again in pits as well. So he's going in. I'm wondering if these drivers are learning perhaps from what we saw in round 1, getting in a very, very early pit stop and planning to make it to the end from there and count on a safety car to get them through on fuel. That'd be an interesting strategy without a safety car already having been called here tonight.
Well, I was quite surprised because obviously with Daniel McCrom getting caught up on that incident, that most certainly would have been called a safety car because of the damage and the debris left behind from the Acura NSX there, and obviously Wild, and obviously the car being stranded and crabbing along the track there. As we see, another Acura going over the sausage curbs, which is giving Dean Powell an opportunity to overtake. I believe that is Charlie McKinnon in the privateer Acura NSX there. Gets a nice move.
Those sausage curbs really proving dangerous tonight. And this is what we were talking about earlier in the broadcast. You know, you've got to really keep a very close eye on just how hard you're pushing through these chicanes, because like any of these tracks that do have those sausage curbs mounted that way, you're going to absolutely bounce these GT3 cars off them. They're not built for it in the same way as, say, a Gen 3 supercar is. And they do not take kindly at all to try to put too much of the track underneath it. As we see these cars making their way down onto the home straight. Daniel Poulton in P10 setting the fastest lap there, a 128.4. So he's certainly looking to make a move and start to catch up because he's down a couple of spots from where he started. But Reece Wakefield up 3 spots now to P7. Ryan Taborski up 1 into P4. But the front 3 at this point unchanged. As Mitch Curry looks ahead to make a moment further up the track. Curry now at the head of a line of cars that stretches all the way back to Aaron Schotter in P9.
Yeah, and I was going to say, as you were mentioning at when one of the replays, some of the drivers actually coming into the pit lane nice and early. We saw Ryan Palmer, one of the AMG Mercedes and McLarens come into the pit lane nice and early there. As we see a position change for Ryan Taborski in the 96 Porsche 992, making a move on Mick Polly. So that's a position change there. But as we see, looks like Jeremy Washington is trying to get involved in the Porsche action, and we can see Mick Polly losing another position to Lockie Burke in P4, and potentially going to give an opportunity for Jeremy Washington to go for a move that Mick Polly's trying to go back on the offense and try to fluster Lockie Burke to giving up that position there that he gained so much time on. That's two positions lost in a matter of a couple of quarters there for Mick Polly, but now he's got pressure from Jeremy Washington and also the fast Reese Wakefield, the winner of the sprint race. Only a moment of matters, only a moment ago in the sprint race, is going to be in struggle town a little bit by Mick Polly, maybe just being flustered at the moment, losing two positions already, and now he's got to have to deal with two of the fastest drivers so far. There's been headlining the season 3 championship, Jeremy Washington and Reese Wakefield in 6th and 7th. But I feel like going back to the point of the pit stops, as you see more cars coming into the pit lane, I feel that's what it's going to be, and I feel like it's a very key thing here around Zolder. You need clear air and you need track position. So I feel like the clean air and running your own race in that free space is going to absolutely hurt you. It's going to help you. As we see Lockie Burke go through that chicane there, that's going to be a penalty going next to his name, a slowdown penalty for Lockie Burke, which is going to open up the door for Jeremy Washington to go down the inside at turns 9. At turn 10, I believe that is. No, that is turn 9. Apologies there. Turns 9 and 10. Coming towards there. There we go. Looks like Lockie Burke has lost that position to Jeremy Wakefield, but he's going to try pick up a bit of a side draft from McLaren. No, he's going to stick behind as he gets towards Jackie Hicks. 11, turns 11 chicane. As he rounds up to the final corner there. Yep, sadly, a slowdown penalty for Lockie Burke drops him behind Jeremy Washington, which is a bit of a buffer between Washington and Wakefield in 7th place.
Plenty of swapping positions going on. It looks like Aaron James found himself well off into the dirt there. You can see on the final chicane, he's going to have to get moving. He's losing a lot of positions in the meantime as a result of that. Further up, Ian Ward just giving up position to Chris Lashbrook and Patrick Frame making his way through as well, but makes it back through the next turn and looking to hold on to that, pushes that actor out wide and maintains the prime position. Bit of contact there, just a little rubber panels, not much in it at this point, but Ian Ward doing everything he can to hold off Patrick Frame, who gets the Patrick Frame. Ian Ward is doing a phenomenal job considering he's racing under control. I think we pointed this out last round. Probably about the only driver I know who's so competitive.
Chris! Wow! Talk about some ultra defensive driving there from Chris Lashbrook there. His contact made between Frame and Lashbrook. Well, looks like Lashbrook had a bit of a bad exit on the second chicane, and he just pointed the car so far right up to the track there that Patrick Frame was almost onto the grass trying to make that move on the Ford Mustang ahead of him, but just fended it off just from that Acura NSX there. And it looks like Chris Lashbrook is now going to come under threat from Patrick Frame in this last chicane here, but doing well so far. 8 positions gained for Chris Lashbrook in the privateer ADHD Ford Mustang GT. A couple of key movers here, key positions have been real movers and shakers. Dean Powell for Black Hawk Motorsport gained up in 10 positions up into 16th. We can also see Jamie Taylor, Danger Zone Motorsports Ford Mustang up 11 in 23rd. Lee Koudoulis, the privateer Acura, up 14 positions in the Acura car number 18, and unfortunately some of the big losers, sadly, Trev Mortimer, Road Racing Australia 82, Mercedes AMG down the order, and of course we have to mention the likes of Danny McCraw, who's unfortunately, I believe, is retired from the end of this race here. Sadly for him, that's his race done and dusted. So very unlucky there, losing 30 positions there. Wiley Blair as well, lost a few positions, as well as we saw with Luke Patton and Luke Hayden down in the bottom of the field. So unfortunate for some of those drivers. What could have been for Daniel McCrom, and what would love to have seen what his pace would have been like catching up and making his way through that front pack. But it's still being held nicely there by Nathan Bowman, 2.9 over Mitch Curry, and Mitch Curry's got himself a good buffer over Ryan Taborski as well in P3 at the moment.
It's still fairly reserved driving, you've got to say, in the front 10. No one really challenging for positions, and not surprising, we're only on lap 9 after all. And so plenty of time left in this race. These guys know they don't have to push super hard just yet, but certainly just want to make sure they're maintaining the gap to the car in front. Nathan Bowman making the most of that clear air out in front. As we see a couple more cars head to the pits. And going to be a very interesting set of decisions made here in terms of strategy tonight. As we say g'day to Keith Logan, and I've been a little slow getting to you, sorry Keith, but welcome back to the coverage this evening. And plenty of moves going on. Patrick Frame side by side with Lashbrook there. They've managed to work it out before the turn. Lashbrook probably wisely deciding to just back out of it a little because he would have been on the outside of that one. And then Jamie Taylor still challenging Kel Willis as they make their way down to one of the chicanes once again. Minshall right on the tail there, and you can see how many of these cars are just misjudging the exit of that chicane, going up and over those sausage curbs and really throwing the GT3s all over the shop there. They're just not built with the tight suspension they do have. They're just not built to those kind of hits. And it's a surprise that these guys aren't doing more damage each time they actually hit them. We make our way up to 15th. Dean Power and Josh Harris, the two Mustangs. I believe that was Josh Harris just giving a bit of a flash of the lights there. Dean Power, undeterred, continues on his line. And Harris is going to have to really work to make that position his own. This is back in the battle for 15th. Dean Power up 11 spots. Now 12 as they pass Josh Benno, who's come in to make his pit stop here on lap number 9. So a few of the pit stops starting to play out. We'll start to get a picture of how everyone stands.
He's the first man in the top 10 that's actually made a pit stop, so keep an eye on Josh Bernard to out in the exit of his pit stop. So he's actually one of the key contenders in that top 10, making the jump, making the first blink, and now it's all up to the rest of the drivers ahead of him and behind him to react to that and see what they think. If it's too early, if it's an early call to jump in the pit lane now, or whether they wait until the end of the session, closer towards the end of the session, half race distance we're looking at with the fuel tank capacity. Obviously, we did hear from Reece Wakefield, fuel saving will be a little bit tricky there, but you can do a little bit if you don't battle too hard. Josh Bernard rounds up and exits in P29. He's got himself a bit of a nice gap between himself, and he's got him picked himself in some good clear air there, just behind the 32 of Martin Lipsky and the Tulip Racing Ford Mustang and Ryan Palmer for ADHD. So he's got himself a good buff, a bit of clean air to try and capitalise on if any drivers are going to be making that jump into the pit lane very shortly.
Jeremy Washington and Reece Wakefield absolutely going at it here. They were all over the back of Mick Polly for a moment and then have just got absorbed in their own little battle. Really throwing the cars side to side behind Polly, trying to put him off, but all it's done is cost them a little bit of time, and now they're locked into this. Mick Polly taking advantage and starting to just extend and stretch his legs a little and drag that Porsche a little bit further up the track if he gets a moment to. I'm not quite sure what's happened, but Brad Cooper has just been disqualified. So I'm not sure what the cause of that has been, but that will be it for Brad Cooper this evening. We'll have to wait and see in the post-race wrap-up as to what's happened there. Plenty of racing still to come on track though. Josh Harris and Dean Power now have caught up to Simon Caplett, and the two Mustangs all over the mirrors of that Porsche.
Geez, that was a late break from Josh Harris there.
It was a very, very late one indeed. But thankfully he's managed to keep it together. Dean Power looking for a way past Simon Caplett right now, and not going to find it through this part of the track unless Caplett puts a foot wrong. It's a very, very tight line. It's interesting, right? The track here at Zolder, despite being reasonably wide, there's really only, for most of this track, a single car width, maybe a car width and a half, that represents the racing line. And so if you go too far off that, you're going to find yourself going much, much slower than the cars around you. So timing these overtakes is critical. You can see Josh Harris just starting to drop away as Dean now takes advantage of the slipstream behind Caplett. and just sticks to that rear bumper right through. We're coming across the line once again. Have a look at all of that debris on the inside from cars rejoining the track after miscalculating that final chicane. It's a tough track here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a track that's very notorious. That is notoriously hard to pass here. Obviously, most of the overtaking that we've seen here tonight has been a couple of moves being made, a bit of a slingshot effect from turns 1 to turn 2. But also, you can see some of the drivers out braking themselves in the chicane. That's where we've seen a lot of overtakes being made by driver error, and then obviously drivers behind them forcing that error in the chicanes or through some of the corners there. So the forcing errors from a bit of pressure from the driver behind, or even putting pressure on themselves mentally. And also, I would say in a way that the last chicane there, the Jackie Hicks chicane, is just getting that good launch out of that final corner and then making that move into turn 1, whether you hold the inside or the outside line. We've been seeing a lot of overtaking in those key spots. So there's been quite a few highlights when it comes to overtaking, so we're no short of overtaking here on a track that's very more to the fact of qualifying is king, and obviously we saw that with our top 4 contenders putting it and demonstrating why they are one of the fast drivers here at MC Motorsport. But at the same time, racecraft is everything around this track. Just executing the moves, setting yourself up, and just really just biding your time, being patient, and not making a mistake on yourself, because we saw the likes of Lockie Burke really overdriving the Porsche that he had at the moment there, and he just got himself a slowdown penalties on the exit of the chicanes, which really led to him dropping well back down the order there, right behind Danny Poulton. So you can see there that Porsche, the FSCR SimSport Porsche 992, really dropped well down the order when he was pretty much as high up as 4th place at the beginning of the race there. So a bit of pressure on Lockie Burke. But obviously, it's all about the precision that these guys are doing. You can see Jeremy Washington, you can see Reese Wakefield, you can see Danny Polson, even the top 2, Nathan Bowman and Mitch Curry. These guys are keeping it so consistent. Yes, they might not be strong out the blocks, but they are keeping their consistency and they're playing their cards very well, and they're holding on to a very good position there. 4 seconds Bowman over Curry, but Curry looks like he's leaking oil a little bit to the cars behind, which is being led by Ryan Taborski in 3rd place.
And Taborski has not managed to close the gap a great deal to Curry, but all of a sudden he's picked up this run of 4 or 5 cars closing down behind him, and of course Mick Polly,
Taborski in the pit lane.
Taborski goes in, there you go. So this will be interesting. I reckon Mick Polly here is going to really close the gap fairly quickly now to Mitch Curry, but you've got Jeremy Washington, Reese Wakefield and Danny P all there. Lachlan Burke a few seconds further back. Keep your eyes though on Washington, Wakefield and Bolton, because once these guys get past Curry, they'll be looking to hunt down Nathan Bowman out in front. The question is whether Bowman can be consistent enough to hold that for realistically another couple of times what we've already done. We're on lap 13 into lap 14 now. Still got 22 laps to go, so plenty of work ahead of him. Nathan Bowman, a great start. But I suspect, big move for Jeremy Washington. Again, those sausage curves just launching him. And that allows Danny P and Reese Wakefield through in the Acuras. Jeez. The pronunciation tonight is letting me go. I'm sorry. Mick Polly in P3, though, continues. Mitch Curry, super consistent, as you said. Not pushing too hard through any of these corners, just looking to avoid I think any issues, as we saw Jeremy Washington get himself into there, and the amount of time that costs you every time you hit one of those curbs cannot be overstated as to just how problematic that can be if you're doing it time and time again in the search of a 10th here, a 10th there. Not much point as Danny P goes into the pit, so he wants some clean air. Reese Wakefield continues, so he'll try and tack onto the back of Ollie's Southern Cross Racing Porsche. And Jeremy Washington, a little bit of work to do now to get into the slipstream as the front end starts to space out. The pit stops are starting to happen throughout the field. Right now, Ryan Taborski back in 24th is the leading driver who has completed a pit stop. So quite a gap there, and it is a reasonably long lap, a minute and a half, with about a minute end to end in the pits for most of these drivers. So it'll give us a very good idea of just how far ahead someone like Danny P is. Keep an eye on him, he's dropping through 16th right now. Let's wait and see how long it takes him to get back out of the pits and whether he comes out ahead of Dvorsky.
Or Mick Polly made a mistake there, the chicane there again, which has given Reese Wakefield an opportunity to throw the car down the inside through to the second chicane there. He's going to make the move stick there, but looks like Mick Polly's going to hold around the outside. Some great racing side by side by the two drivers. Great respect between Reese Wakefield and Mick Polly to make that happen, because that is part of the track where you cannot really overtake through the Gilles Villeneuve chicane, but they made that work so well that they even went side by side through that chicane there. Good racing room and good racecraft amongst them, and that's Reese Wakefield up into P3. So he's picked off two drivers that have made the same mistake at that chicane there through the Gilles Villeneuve chicane. Derryman Washington being the first victim. Sadly, they're losing 2 positions, putting a bit of pressure on himself to try and get past Mick Polly, but now that he actually lost those positions to both Reese Wakefield and Danny Bolton, and we saw Mick Polly making a mistake, same spot, and Reese Wakefield cool, calm and collected up into P3 at the moment, and now he's got himself a good buffer, 1.7 behind Mitch Curry. Obviously we can see some of the drivers have come into the pit lane. Danny Bolton has actually jumped Ryan Taborski and Josh Bernard who's the provisional leader of this race, or the first of the pit stoppers come into the pit lane. Great work from Danny Polton. He's 4.8 behind Nick Clydesdale, so a lot of clean air between him and the car ahead of him. So he's going to be punching in those fast laps. So Reese Wakefield, just talk about capitalising and seizing your opportunity. That's 2 moves in the span of 2 laps in the same corner.
Absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see if Washington can get past you. He's going to have to be careful not to repeat that same incident on the way out of these chicanes, and just trying to keep that McLaren in one piece at this point. Mitch Curry, meanwhile, continues to just plug away out in front. Reese Wakefield, though, very rapidly pulling him in now. Nick Clydesdale, for those asking in the chat, and welcome Lucas Baker, currently sitting in 21st, so up 11 spots, but he's one of the last drivers on track yet to make a pit stop, so probably not the ideal position for him at the moment. Plenty of time yet to come, though, of course. You see Henry King has had a big moment. We'll go check that out, see what's happened. And don't tell me it's the sausage curbs that have done it to him. And what an awful spot. I don't think it's the sausage curb. I think,
as we see, one of the drivers actually had to brake. And, yeah, very good awareness there by one of the Porsche drivers, just not to smash into the side of that Lamborghini Huracan. So great work and great respect there by all the competitors on the field there. But very, very close quarters from a massive accident. Potentially that could have been a cause for a safety car if that were the case, if there was a bit of contact there. As we see Ian Ward being pressured by one of the drivers there, Bradley Minshall for Blackhawk Motorsports. Dummies Ian Ward to outbrake himself into turn 1, and that gets him the move done before turn 2. Nice position change there for the man in the Ford Mustang for Blackhawk Motorsport. So great job. 21 positions made by Bradley Minshall, so that's a nice underachiever there at the moment. 21 positions gained, so hats off to him for a really good job. Looks like Ian Ward now coming under pressure from Dan Micro for BE Electrical. Race on Oz Motorsport there, just trying to get the car stopped before the entry and exit of the chicane there. Just drifted a little bit wide, bit of oversteer slide on the exit of the chicane. As we can see, Mitch Curry come into the pit lane. They're one of the top 3 coming into the pit lane already. Mitch Curry pulls that Ford Mustang. As we can see there, we can see
back. Sorry, I thought we lost you there for a moment, Nick, but we are continuing on as Nick Clydesdale in the Corvette finds himself being overtaken by Daniel Bolton, who is our lead driver in terms of pit stops at the moment. Now, this will be interesting. Keep an eye on Danny P as he makes his way around. Let's see just how far ahead of Mitch Curry he comes out, if indeed he does end up ahead. Now, Curry's still in his pit box, just leaving his pit box now. So let's see how this matches up, because if Curry can get out in front, then that is a phenomenal pit stop that he's made. And he has. Curry's managed to get out in front of Danny Bolton, but only just. Danny P is at a much higher pace. There's Mitch Curry
just
at the regional.
When you say just, there it is.
Yeah, we're talking nothing in it right now. Curry's going to be on cold tyres, so you'd have to expect that Daniel Poulton will take it. That said, Curry's got the inside line there, takes full advantage of it. He's going to play very, very defensively. Watch him stay on this inside line as they come down towards the chicane once again. Daniel Poulton will have the better line, but Mitch Curry is going to absolutely park it through here. And Daniel Poulton again hitting that curb, throws the front end of that area up in the air, and that's going to slow him right down. Mitch Curry, retaining that spot, has set himself up beautifully for the second half of this race.
Yeah, that just unfortunately loses the momentum for Danny Poulton there, but just straight away, just on the warmer tyres, he's really just called back up to the rear wing at the moment there, so he's looking to make a move down. Chicane turns 9, he does make the move, makes it stick past the Ford Mustang, and that's going to be provisional P2 in this race on the field there. So Danny Poulton on the charge and really flying. Obviously setting the fastest lap of 1 minute 28.389 as the fastest lap of the race, car 970. Really stamping his authority, really trying to avenge for what was a disastrous feature race in Imola at round 1. Is now looking to make amends for the sprint race victory that he got at Imola, to now converting to a feature race victory here at Zolder. But we're just about to go over half race distance now. Nathan Bowman, Reese Wakefield, Mick Polly, our top 3, Jeremy Washington in P4. So we'll wait to see if one of these drivers are going to come into the pit lane. What does Nathan Bowman do halfway into this race? He comes into the pit lane? No, he stays out. What about Reese Wakefield? Will he come into the pit lane? No, he's going to stay out as well, because Reese Wakefield is really closing in the time on Nathan Bowman really well and really fast. He's gained 3-4 tenths on the last lap there. As we see the drivers coming across the start-finish line, we can see there, Reese Wakefield has actually gained time on Nathan Bowman, 29.5 by Nathan Bowman, then a 28.8 set by Reese Wakefield. So he's on a charge here. Reese Wakefield, where this pace has come from absolutely nowhere. We saw it in the sprint race, but clawing your way up through the field here, and consistency over the laps is incredible. It's like, does he really need to come into the pit lane? Does he really need to make a pit stop? Because the pace has been so consistent in this first stint of the race.
Yeah, and at this point, Wakefield's just got to be enjoying the clear air, which we've already seen is so important here at Zolder, and he's absolutely making the most of it, starting to close in on Nathan Bowman. He'll be wanting to reduce that gap as far as possible before he makes his way to the pits, and of course, every extra lap that he can stay out there is an ever so slightly quicker pit stop that he's going to be able to make, with less and less fuel being needed to get to the end of this race. So I don't know just how far Wakefield's going to push it before he does decide to come in, but I wouldn't expect him to be pitting unless he absolutely has to at this stage, because he has no one hassling him from behind. Very, very clear out in front. Nathan Bowman goes in, and there goes Reese Wakefield. No sooner have I said that than the front two come in. So let's keep an eye now on Daniel Poulton.
The front four, actually.
Big bounce again.
Polly and Washington have come into the pit lane as well. So the top 4, the top 5, top 6. So all the contenders have come into the pit lane right now. At the end of lap 19 to start the commencing of lap 20, the top 6 have come into the pit lane. We're going to keep our eyes on Danny Poulton, who's charging through the back section of the straps, coming up towards turns 9 and then up to one of the second last chicanes, and then the last chicane that'll lead him onto the pit straight. It's going to be keeping an eye on the driver that is Danny Poulton, looking to avenge and show what he's got. He's been setting some fast laps. The last lap was the fastest compared to the top 10. He is in a 29.589 as the fastest between those 10 drivers. But as he comes into the start finish straight right now, what is his lap time on this lap? It is a 28.776. So again, some good pace there. Drivers coming out of the pit lane right now. Where does this feed Danny Poulton amongst the field? Looks like it's going to be P4 at the moment there. It's starting behind Jeremy Washington, and there it is, right behind Jeremy Washington and Mick Poley. So I thought we would have seen a lot of gain from Danny Poulton. I feel like it's been a bit of a loss for Danny Poulton, so it must have made a mistake at one of his laps there, because I would have assumed that Danny Poulton would have been up there with his teammate Reese Wakefield.
It's really interesting how that's worked out, and just maybe speaks to how much Danny P may have been held up by some of the slower traffic that he was behind after his pit stop, because Nathan Bowman, Reese Wakefield, you can see here out in front. This is Reese Wakefield in P2 and looking ahead to Bowman, just cresting that hill ahead of him. These two have still got themselves a very healthy gap back to Mick Polly from Southern Cross Racing in P3, who finds himself with a couple of people on his tail after that pit stop. Jeremy Washington went in for his stop on that lap as well. Danny P, of course, making his stop on lap 13. Aaron Schotter further back is getting passed by a couple of cars now as they get out on their fresher tyres. Josh Benno made that very, very early stop on lap 8, so he finds himself back in P8. Side by side, though, Aaron Schotter and Ryan Taborski through the final chicane and managing to hold it together. But really, that's cost Taborski a lot of time. He's had the less than ideal line. He's going to have to slot back in behind Josh Benno. And this pack continues to try and not only battle it out here for P6, but also thinking about how they might try and stay in touch with those front runners.
Yeah, absolutely, and that was actually a nice move there by Aaron Schotter in the 144 Mercedes-AMG, up 6 positions there, so really good showing by the privateer driver in P6 to be ahead of Josh Bernard, Ryan Taborski, Lockie Burke and Kyle Ridley rounding up the bottom half of the top 10. Mitch Curry is sitting outside the top 10, and this is a big shock here that Curry is gone from a P2 before the pit stop is down outside the top 10. So where has it all gone wrong for Mitch Curry in this second stint that he seems to be finding himself outside the top 10? Maybe he's going to have some fresher tyres, absolutely, but it's baffling to see him outside the top 10 when he was sitting P2 only a handful of laps ago.
Yeah, and look, I think that's probably just down to a little bit of extra time spent in the pits and perhaps some of the other cars. We're not talking much, but spent an extra 3 or 4 seconds in the pits compared to some of the cars around him. Not a great deal extra, but maybe just enough, and perhaps just ever so slightly off on the fuel calculations, and that's what's kept him in the pit box a touch longer. Reese Wakefield going a 128.199, fastest lap of the race, and you can see he has reeled in Nathan Bowman. And so he'll be pushing hard to try and make his way past the maximum effort racing team entry there. Nathan Bowman's had a phenomenal run
on that lap time compared to Nathan Bowman. 29.2 set by Bowman and 28.2, as I said, be the fastest lap as you mentioned. Wow, 1 full second clear. That's incredible.
Monster. He's an absolute monster. There's no two ways about it. And Nathan Bowman putting up a phenomenal fight here. It's one thing to catch someone, another thing entirely to pass, as we've seen here already tonight. So Nathan Bowman, time to put on your best defensive efforts, because it's going to take absolutely everything you've got to keep Wakefield behind you for the next 14 or so laps. It's a big ask from here, isn't it, Nick?
Absolutely, and I feel like he's going to be setting himself up and move right here down at turn 9, late on the brakes on the Porsche 911 versus the Acura NSX. No sticks behind, so very good patience there. A little bit slippy on the exit for Nathan Bowman there, losing a bit of traction. So it's going to give Reese Wakefield an opportunity to show the nose down here at turn 11, but it's not going to make the move stick. It's just got to set himself up here, slow the car down, take a bit of a narrow line, get the foot down on the throttle. It looks like he's done that perfectly, so it looks like it'd be quite close to each other, less than 10 seconds. Can he actually send the car down the inside of turn 1? No, he doesn't. He actually hangs back, so he's going to wait patiently. The Acura seems to be hooking there as we go on board with Reese Wakefield, as we can see himself plucking through the gears there. But look at the confidence that he's got in the car, the traction that he's got in the Acura NSX. He's going to make the move at turn 3, and then leading up to turn 4 to Lucian is going to make that move stick on Nathan Bowman, and Reese Wakefield from 10th position on the grid now leads the race on lap 23 of 36. What a recovery drive it has been for Reese Wakefield. Consistency for the man for Antique Motorsports, and he's got himself back up into the lead like he did in the sprint race. That was a nice onboard shot that we got of Reese Wakefield making that move on Nathan Bowman. They make a valiant effort there by Nathan Bowman, and now it's up to him to try and maintain that P2. We see some dust being kicked up in the air there, and the second chicane there at the Gilles Villeneuve chicane. But what a drive this has been for Reese Wakefield if he can maintain this position at the end of the race.
As we look a little bit further back, Mick Polly doing a fantastic job of holding off Jeremy Washington and Daniel Poulton right now. So Polly from Southern Cross Racing. Look, he's, again, a lot of work to do here, but a lot of laps to get it done. Nathan Bowman, Have a look at that gap already opening up. So out to 8/10 to Reece Wakefield. Wakefield is just next level fast in these GT3s. There's no two ways about it. Give him a little bit of clear air and he will start to make the run. So it's a lot to Nathan Bowman to try and close that gap back down, but it's going to be an effort from here. He's going to be hoping, of course, that Wakefield just overcooks the tyres or something. But yeah, Reece Wakefield, ridiculously quick in that era. And yeah, Nathan Bowman has a huge amount of work to do. At this point, you've got to wonder whether he's considering, whether he's trying to chase for P1 or just doing everything he can to hold off P3 onwards.
Yeah, absolutely, and I feel like what is actually helping Nathan Bowman is the likes of Mick Poley holding up this gaggle of cars. But as I say that, he actually made a mistake through the Klein chicane and is now conceded position to Jeremy Washington. Looks like he's going to hold around the outside. Narrow entries and exits. There's some great racing and great racecraft there. Mick Poley, I think, was just like Lockie Burke, only in that first stint, losing positions through that chicane there. He's going to concede the positions to Danny Poulton and also Jeremy Washington. No, he's actually defended off from Danny Poulton, so nicely done there by Mick Poley to only lose one position from that moment that he had in the second chicane. Through that Klein chicane there, you can see it's been really catching people out at that turn 5 chicane, and he's lost the position to Jeremy Washington, but he's actually fended off from Danny Poulton. So that's some really great driving there by Mick Poley to not lose 2 in the matter of 1 corner. So as we see that replay there, we can see there Jeremy Washington almost on the grass there at the top of the crest. He gets the car
from Mick Poley, though. Absolutely elbows up, banging panels, respectful racing, but not giving that spot up easily at all. And absolutely fending off Daniel Poulton as well immediately after. Just
on the grass too.
Really pushing hard. Have a look at the lines he's taking there, just making it very, very difficult. And that's what's managed to keep him in the spot for now.
Great racing there, and it's not over yet. He's gone for the inside defensive line, back onto the racing line as Mick Poley, as we see Jeremy Washington climb over the curves there. So now it's roles reversed. Jeremy Washington under pressure from Mick Poley, who could be coming under pressure from Danny Poulton. No, Jeremy Washington defends that nicely there by Jeremy Washington to only lose 1, but Mick Poley and Jeremy Washington biting those curves hard in a matter of 2 laps there, and a position change for that last spot on the podium. We have to remind our viewers that this is the battle for P3. Reece Wakefield, Nathan Bowman, as clear as day up at the front of the field there, but this battle for P3 is not over, and we don't even know who's going to take that 3rd position until potentially lap 36 there, Jared, because if they keep tripping themselves over that second chicane through the Klein chicane, it could be anyone that can take P3.
Yeah, they've been chewing so much time in this battle between the 3 of them. Nathan Bowman extending out to 3.5 odd seconds, so 4 seconds now back to Mick Poley. But Reece Wakefield, we were just talking about him extending it out to 8/10. All of a sudden, he's 3.5, coming up on 4 seconds ahead of Nathan Bowman.
Wow.
Wakefield unstoppable here tonight at Zolder. It's just going to be a question of whether he can make it to the end without incident at this stage. But we're going to stick with some of the amazing racing going on further back through the field. Take a look at this battle going on right now. We are looking at the battle for 17th, essentially.
See that Lee Cadulis has made a mistake on the background, being caught up
there. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, Josh Harris at the front of this is trying to chase down Simon Caplet, but he's got Charlie Milliken and Chris Bleakley from 19 Racing right on his tail as they make their way around to start lap number 27. Plenty going on. We'll go back and take a look and see what's happened to Lee Cadulis there. And it's just been a case of him, just catches a bit of grass on the outside under braking, and that's been enough to put him sideways. Very lucky not to get collected there, and rejoins, having lost himself a couple of positions. But in the background...
driver behind there. Driver in the background lost it as well.
That was Dan Mirko coming through the iRacing Designs replay, showing that he's come through and, just, again, under brakes too much, gets spun around, and these guys absolutely pushing the limits of the traction available on these tyres. Sometimes finding the limit is not quite as far out as perhaps they had first thought.
Yeah, it's very unlucky there. Two drivers caught out in the same moment on the same part of the tarmac there. We just saw Chris Lashbrook avoiding Lee Koudoulis there, just driving around the inside. So very good for him to have the spotters in his ear, just telling him where to place that car on track there. So really good work there by the man that's driving for the ADHD entry there. As we see Josh Harris up into P17 has got his teammate a couple of positions ahead of him, Ryan Palmer in 15. So for the battle of bragging rights, it looks like it's going Ryan Palmer's way only by a couple of positions, but it is so close between these guys, because you look at Ryan Palmer there in 15th, not far behind Chris Lashbrook in 20th place. So three drivers from ADHD is going to be really battling themselves out for that 15th spot there. As we can see, Jeremy Washington is now caught up back to the rear wing of that Porsche 992. But we can see Danny Poulter has lost a fair bit of ground to Jeremy Washington, so I wonder what's happened to him. Potentially another victim through the sausage curbs for Danny Poulter, or potentially the fact that he might be overheating the tyres, because he's been on that compound of tyres for quite some time and was really using that set of tyres to really catch up to the back of the field and charging through. He must be now overheating them a bit too much. He may have just seen the best use from those tyres, and probably the tyres are not responding to how he drives.
Dropped a full second on the previous lap, so obviously has had some sort of issue. And that's just given Jeremy Washington and Mick Polly a little bit of breathing room to carry on a two-way battle instead of three, which is, particularly for Jeremy Washington, probably the preferable spot, not having to check the mirrors quite so much. But I imagine if those tyres are out of temp, Danny P will be working hard to just let the temps come back down and take it very, very easy. Nice, smooth driving to bring the temps back down, regain a bit of that grip, and he'll go again, I'm sure. Still plenty of time to do it. We're on lap 28. Of 36 right now, and we're getting closer and closer to the end of race number 2 here this evening for round 2. The Domains2U GT3 Championship rages on here at Circuit Zolder, and certainly a much cleaner bit of racing than we saw in round 1. I think everyone probably a little excited perhaps in round 1 there, Nick, and this week I guess just a bit more keen to make it to the end in one piece.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like there's a little bit more contact made a week now. We're just seeing a little bit of more driver error. I feel like we're seeing from this area. Obviously, being such a narrow track, an old school circuit that is Circuit Zolder, but at the same time, really just drivers keen to just put their foot on the throttle and just mash it down as hard as they can to get some good traction out of corners and really be ahead of their rivals, a bit ahead of their competitors. At the same time, they're just losing all of that traction on the rear end of the cars, and they're just looping it suddenly. So it just feels like it's more of a driver's circuit, and all about being patient when it comes to putting the foot down on the throttle there. So we see Kyle Ridley looking to make a move on Ryan Taborski, who was actually one of the first drivers that came into the pit lane, one of the first drivers that actually came into the pit lane in that first sequence of pit stops, as we saw Joshua Bernard as well. Still holding on to P6 nicely there, as we saw Aaron Schotter up there, up P6, but it looks like he's made a big mistake. He's actually lost all those positions he's gained there inside the top 10, comfortably inside the top 10. Now drops back to 12th suddenly for the 144, and what was looking like a good race for the Merc driver, suddenly back in the same spot where he started. Not where he wanted to finish his race, unfortunately. Kyle Ridley looking to try and go for an inside move through Gil Villeneuve. No, he doesn't. Oh, but it looks like we can see Ryan Taborski's just slowed down a little bit there. Just got caught up on the chicanes there. Too much entry speed. But yeah, I feel like it's just been more driver error, I feel like, for this round. Not too much contact. I feel like there's a little bit more respect when it comes to the racing amongst the competitors. I just feel like it's just more on the drivers themselves, really putting too much pressure on themselves when they don't really need to be putting that much pressure on themselves, because as much as it is a demanding circuit as well, you need to think about getting those positions and executing them without any problems.
Yeah, absolutely, and look, plenty of pressure still happening right throughout the field as we keep an eye here on Charlie Milliken and Chris Bleakley. Josh Harris just out in front as well. Now some slower traffic getting caught up here. Probably not a bad idea actually to stop and just let these drivers through, because getting caught in one of these corners is not the ideal place to be in my view. Take a look a little bit further up. This is James Salhani looking to close down Mitch Curry now. And this is just a little back from the battle between Kyle Ridley and Lachlan Burke we were watching a moment ago. You can see just at the front of your screen there, Lachlan Burke all over the tail, looking for a move up the inside into the chicane, under brakes.
Risky.
Kyle Ridley looks for the switchback, a big bit of contact there. Ridley goes wide, just manages to keep the car straight. They're going to be side by side all the way down into the next chicane. And Kyle Ridley and Lachlan Burke, look, I think probably the right move there for Burke to just pull out and give that one to Ridley, because Ridley had the much better exit from the previous chicane and probably would have been fairly comfortably in front had there not been that bit of contact from Burke going over the sausage curbs. But it is game on once again here, and all of a sudden these two have a few cars on the back of them to worry about, as James Salhani says, I'll join in on that. Aaron Schotter wants to get involved, as does Mitch Curry, and all of a sudden we have a 5-way battle for 8 as these guys all line up on the way through. Big move from Mitch Curry in the background, looking for a way past Schotter as well. But plenty of action going on right throughout this field. Up front though, Reece Wakefield extending that lead 5.2 seconds now over Nathan Bowman. You've got to think he's got this one wrapped up at this point.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously on the previous lap they're not showing any signs of pace at the moment there. Actually, Nathan Bowman was the fastest driver on the previous lap compared to Reece Wakefield, but the damage has been done. 5.4 seconds, and you know what I've been saying about Danny Bolton and losing ground to Jeremy Washington, probably overheating those tyres. You can definitely see it on timing monitor there. He's almost 3 seconds behind Jeremy Washington, so he's really abused those compound of tyres from his stint, obviously playing the undercut strategy almost to perfection there, but just overheating them and putting too much pressure, overtaking the drivers like Jeremy Washington and Mick Poley for P3 has cost him dearly, and he's well down the order, 2.4 behind Jeremy Washington. There's really lost ground as we see contact made. That looks like Lockie Burke there has made contact and has gone the wrong way around. Yes, he has. I believe that looks like an AMG front splitter. There it is. It is Aaron Schotter who has lost the front splitter. So contact made between Lockie Burke and Aaron Schotter. So what happened there? I believe it had something to do with James Sahini going for an inside move. Yeah, there you go.
No move on there, and unfortunately Burke copying the worst of it. Race Control, I'm sure, will be having a bit of a look at that one, but thankfully not too much damage done to the Porsche, so still an opportunity to catch it up and maybe salvage a couple of positions here. Aaron Schotter also, not the cause of that incident, but definitely plenty of damage to the front end of that Mercedes that he's going to have to carry for just a few more laps to get to the end from here. And Mitch Curry just starting to drop away off the back of James Salhani's McLaren. So whether or not he's going to be able to stay with them for another 3 or 4 laps is...
Not so sure if that Mercedes is going to be a nice car to drive in the next 4.5 laps of this race. It's going to be with no front splitter. I'm sure that's going to cause a lot of aerodynamic deficiencies and really just make the car offsetting a little bit, a bit of oversteer and understeer at the same time through the chicanes.
I think you're right, it will be, but I would much rather be driving without a front bar on one of these than without a rear wing. If I had to choose an end for the damage to happen to.
Unfortunately, like we saw with Daniel McCrom, sadly, who was gone, one of the early victims in lap 1.
These cars do not have any grip without that massive amount of downforce on the rear end. And Daniel McCrom, as you say, the prime example of what happens if you do lose the rear wing. You've got to be super, super aware of it if you do get any damage to the rear end as to just how your car looks. As we take a look a bit further back and can see Chris Bleakley continuing to hassle Charlie Milliken, both of these guys going at it now for the last few laps and looking for a way through. Here's Bleakley from 19 Racing. Hasn't managed to find it just yet. Milliken doing a great job of driving defensively and keeping the pace up. Just ahead, Josh Harris, again, probably just breathing a little sigh of relief that he's getting a bit of a breather. And further up through the field, though, Jeremy Washington just cannot find the answer to Mick Poley right now. He's been challenging for P3 for, I think it's about the last 5 or 6 laps, but hasn't yet managed to find a way to get past Mick and to stay there is the key thing. He needs to have swapped positions a couple of times already. And fortunately,
Look
for
at Danny
Washington,
P though. He's caught up like it's nothing. He's gained 6/10
So he has.
on Jeremy Washington. So he's up back into less than a second range now. So what I thought I was going to be ruling him out. I mean, I'm making that mistake of ruling him out being 3 seconds behind. It's now just proves me wrong by closing up to less than a second behind Jeremy Washington. So this is why he's one of the crowd favourites here at MC Motorsport. It's a driver that never gives up. And look at him. He's right back in the mix of things on the battle for P3. So I feel like Jeremy Washington might be one of the drivers overheating his tyres and getting caught up in the dirty air of the Porsche 992, being frustrated to not being able to overtake Mick Poley. He's trying to force him into unorthodox moves and unorthodox maneuvers, trying to go inside, outside, trying to park the car in the middle of the track. They're just trying to fluster Mick Poley, but Mick Poley's having none of it. Some great driving by the Porsche 911, by the Porsche 992 driver, sporting the 911 race number that he's got on his car. But Jeremy Washington, the defending champion, all under pressure by Danny Poulton right behind there, because he's also putting pressure on himself, and he's going to cost himself a mistake by not getting past Mick Poley sooner than later.
I just want to know where Daniel Poulton has found all this extra pace from. With the tyres really...
Last lap was a 28.3.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
That is so fast. And it makes me wonder,
than Jeremy Washington.
Was it a case of just bringing the temps down? Is that all it was?
It had to be.
If so, had he not overheated them back then how on earth would he be sitting right now? If it hadn't been for that lap early where we think he may have done a bit too much damage. Look, at this stage, the battle for P3 is looking like going right to the end. Nathan Bowman, you can see just ahead. He's just left the front of your screen there, so he's going to be checking the rear view as these three get closer and closer. Reese Wakefield, very, very comfortably out in front, crosses the start-finish line to begin lap number 35, so he'll be getting the white flag on the next lap. Nathan Bowman, he's got a little bit of a buffer, and as long as these guys keep battling, he should feel reasonably comfortable there in P2, but P3 is going to come down to the absolute wire with Mick Poley, Jeremy Washington and Daniel Poulton all in amongst it. Ian Ward coming out of the pits there right in the middle. And Daniel Poulton lucky to get around the outside. Yeah, what do you do? That's just, that's the nature of it.
Not much you can do there, sadly, for Ian Ward there, but it's just lost him a little bit of touching ground to Jeremy Washington there, and Jeremy Washington is not really closing up on Mick Poley for the battle on the last spot of the podium. Nathan Wakefield has run away with this, 8.6 covering himself and Nathan Bowman. Nathan Bowman 2.1 ahead of Mick Poley. Well, we thought Jeremy Washington had the move done on Mick Poley with Mick Poley's mistake going over the sausage curves here through the Klein chicane. The next lap, Jeremy Washington does the exact same thing, which gave Mick Poley the opportunity to take back P3. Danny Poulton was in the fight for all of this. He was nowhere, and only now a couple of laps later, he's brought himself right back into contention, 7/10 behind Jeremy Washington. And we are just about to start the last lap now. Reese Wakefield is about to start the start-finish line very shortly to commence lap 36 or 36. What an unforgettable race it's going to be, and what an unforgettable round it's going to be for Reese Wakefield, but the battle for P3 is not over yet. Could it be a potential battle for P2 if Nathan Bowman makes a mistake? Because with that lap traffic being caught out by Mick Poley, losing a bit of time to Jeremy Washington, I feel like this is a great opportunity now for Jeremy Washington to close up, because this is probably been as close as he can get to the rear bumper of that Porsche 992. Really try and feed it in on the exit of turn 1 to try and set himself up for a turn 2 move. He shows the nose down the inside, can't get the move done, but he's now going to be vulnerable to Danny Poulton, who's got the inside line at turn 3, and Poulton makes the move stick. Jeremy Washington holds it around the outside, can't hold it here at turn 4, and that is another position loss by the reigning champion. We can see Mick Poley has run wide on turn 4 up to turn 5 through Klein chicane. Can he keep that car stick? Can he not go over those sausage curves? Can he keep it calm? He runs wide on the first part, and he's gone over the sausage curves, and he's lost another position, 2 positions, and Danny Poulton out of nowhere, what we thought was out of contention, is now into P3. Jeremy Washington back up into P4. Danny Poulton is now the lead contender for the last spot on the podium. What a turnaround this has been for Danny P, taking the candy from a baby from P5 to P3. What a comeback that was for Danny Poulton. Thought was out of it. overheating those tyres, but just brought them back to temperature. And we go back towards the front there. His teammate Reese Wakefield, what a commemorable drive that was, lights the flag, a clean sweep here at Circuit Zolder and takes the victory. What a win that is for Reese Wakefield there. 2 for 2 here at Circuit Zolder. Nathan Bowman holds on to P2 after starting on pole position. What a round and what a race it has been for the Porsche driver. But Danny Poulton up to P3 with 2 mistakes from Jeremy Washington and Mick Poley on the final lap here. Jared, unbelievable scenes here. Danny Poulton, take a bow.
A complete reversal from what we were expecting. We thought Jeremy Washington and Mick Poley would take it all the way to the line, and then out of nowhere, Daniel Poulton, MC Motorsports, just absolutely blitzed in those last couple of laps, almost like he'd been just biding his time and waiting for it. I have no idea what's happened to allow that to all come to pass, but we know that Mick Poley just cutting that corner way too fine, and as always, that last lap just enough to unsettle the car, and once you go over those sausage curbs, you know, it's very, very hard to come back from that. So unfortunately for Mick Poley ending up in 5th, but Reese Wakefield taking the win here tonight at a stellar drive. Look, honestly, never looked in doubt once he got past Nathan Bowman, just extended that lead further and further off into the distance. We'll take a bit of a moment, though, to chat to the drivers as they come through, and we're joined in the booth by Daniel Poulton. Danny P, welcome back, mate. That was a phenomenal last couple of laps to get yourself back onto the podium.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. That last lap, oh my word, it's like the seas parted and positions were like actually possible.
We've been sitting here chatting for the last little while about what happened to you there, because you were off the pace by a good couple of seconds, and we figured that maybe he's overheated the tyres and just needs to cool them down. But all of a sudden, you found an extra 2 or 3 gears and caught back up. Was that all that happened, or was there something else going on?
No, the tyres definitely felt like they fell off a cliff, so I just gave it a few laps of just gentleness with it, and it seemed to come back, and I was able to get through that back chicane without becoming a SpaceX rocket. So put the foot down and went for it.
Well, can't argue with
absolutely.
the result.
Yeah,
that was amazing.
I was going to say there, like, I completely wrote you off on getting that position up into P3, because obviously, you know, dropping yourself back to 3 seconds and, you know, probably losing those tire temperatures, losing all those tire pressures, that would have been the end of your race, because you actually had to do quite a fair bit at the end of your first pit stop, just overtaking cars, trying to get your car into the best position possible. We actually thought we predicted you to be up near Reese Wakefield, Nathan Bowman, but maybe something happened in that first stint that probably hampered you to getting yourself up into that higher positions in position 2. Was that something happened on one of those stints that make maybe a mistake or something?
Yeah. So we each had 2 different strategies: run a little bit shorter, run a little bit longer. So I ran a little bit shorter and just got held up with a bit of lap traffic, which I probably could have maybe way quicker through them, but I thought I just played a bit safe. But when the boys came out, we're neck and neck, I was like, oh, I lost the potential advantage I've got. So I thought I'll just make the best of what we can and just sit and wait for someone to make a mistake and then try grab it if you can.
Yeah, and just in your position, obviously you were in that position yourself, but just tell the viewers back at home, the last lap there, sitting P5, I'm seeing Mick Poley and Jeremy Washington duking it out on that first corner. Jeremy Washington tries to throw the car down the inside of turn 2, gets caught up. Yeah. And you're just biding your time, being patient, gets past Jeremy Washington. What was the chances of you trying getting past Mick Poley? Were you actually thinking that he was going to make a mistake at that chicane there? Because it's been quite a hot spot, obviously, including yourself, being caught out by the sausage curbs.
I was looking and I was like, if Mick can get through this chicane good, I don't have a chance. But I saw him slightly understeer and missed that first little chicane at the complex, and I was like, oh, if he goes wide or it gets a little bit of a jump, I think it's a good opportunity. So he was off the track, just thought I put my foot down, don't back out, and away I went.
And I guess this is why you're the fan favorite here at MC Motorsports. Obviously, you're the people's champion, and everyone loves you about it. There's obviously a comeback drive there, a comeback drive by Danny Polson, and obviously now I have to say to myself, I cannot write you off anymore, because a drive like that is absolutely fantastic. And you've definitely give yourself a lot more confidence after what was a not so great round at Imola in the feature race. Obviously, a lot of incidents have been caught up in yourself, so a bit of a redemption drive for yourself.
Yeah, it was.
Here at Zolder.
Yeah, I struggled a lot in Imola, just like physically. I've got quite a leg impairment, and I've got some new sim gear, so I actually struggled a lot just physically. So I did a bit of work during the week, and tonight was a breeze. But I can't write off the Antic Bulls, because who knows what they're gonna pull out each week.
Well,
yeah, absolutely. And
phenomenal result there for you, Danny. P3, not a bad way to end race number 2. We'll let you go celebrate. And we are going to have a bit of a chat to your teammate, but congratulations.
Yeah, have a good chat with Reese. He deserved it for this week.
Absolutely. Thank you, and congrats again on making the podium.
Thanks all. Have a good rest of your night.
Danny P there is just finding his way back somehow to position number 3. An awesome finish, but you know, you talk about dominating drives, and I think we can't look past Reese Wakefield. Reese, welcome back to the booth, first of all. What an absolutely enormous drive that was. We watched you slowly reel in Nathan Bowman, and once you were past, it's like there wasn't even another car on the track, out to a 10-second lead. A phenomenal finish to your night here, taking out position 1. So congratulations, first of all. Talk us through just how you managed to open up that much space out in front.
Thank you. First of all, it was that one I had to work for. I really had to work for it. At the start, got a pretty decent jump. Just tried to not crash at turn 1.
Always a good strategy.
Found myself in P7 and just kind of stayed behind Jeremy for a while in the pack of cars, just waiting for like opportunities. I wasn't going to take any big risks or anything, and luckily some opportunities came my way. But yeah, going into the pits, I think I was three odd seconds behind Nathan. I'm not too sure if he took tyres or not, but I took my 2 left side tyres because it's a clockwise track, so I definitely need more left side grip for the right hand corners more. So I took my 2 tyres, and I just put my head down and did the best I could to try and reel him in. He was pretty quick. I guess it wasn't easy trying to make up 3 seconds, but we got there in the end. And I think once I got past him, I just, again, put my head down, kept it clean. I thought I underfueled myself a little bit, so I was fuel saving for a while. Turns out I was wrong and left myself with too much fuel, so.
Well,
there you go. Too much fuel is better than underfueling the car, am I right? But I was gonna say, you'd mentioned it at the post-race victory in the sprint race that your starts was the absolute key for getting your car off the start line and winning the sprint race. It obviously helped you so much here at the start of the feature race. You gained 2 positions at the end of turn 1, and then you got yourself up into P7 at the end of the first lap. So that start that you've got in the Acura, you've kind of nailed it down so much there. So what does it come to? Obviously, I'm sure with the pre-season testing you would have done, I'm guessing, would you have done a lot of practice starts in all the other cars that you've been racing in your life that you've been racing here on iRacing?
I haven't particularly done a lot of standing starts in GT3. Obviously, last season was my first season in MC Motorsport, so standing starts in GT3s were kind of new to me then. But since then, I think I've gotten better. I had the McLaren last season. It wasn't particularly great on traction control, but the Acura I can't fault it at the moment. It's an incredible car to drive. You put it where it wants to go, and it just goes there. The only downside is understeer in medium to high speed corners. So these upcoming tracks are going to be a little bit of a struggle for the Acura, I think, but I had to try and capitalize on these tight and twisty ones while I still can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess for yourself, obviously coming up, obviously 3 out of the 4 races we've had so far here in the MC Motorsports Domains2U GT3 Championship, all been won by the Acura NSX. Obviously, the favoured car amongst the competitors, obviously the Porsche, McLaren, and the Mustang. So obviously coming up to these next few tracks, obviously the Gilles Villeneuve, Montreal, coming up next round. Obviously, do you feel like that's going to be a slight disadvantage for you guys? Are you guys looking for maybe you're going to be working together to give yourself a tow down the back straight and on the pit straight as well, just to help with those lap times, being up towards the front?
Yeah, I dare say myself and the Antic team will definitely try and work together as best we can to try and get us as far up the grid for that first race as possible. Villeneuve has a long back straight into a really tight chicane. So I think we're just going to utilise to the best of our advantage and see where we get on from there. But at the end of the day, it's all seat time in the car. Like, the whole reason why the Acura personally was chosen for me this season was it's the car that myself and Danny are driving in the GT Pro Invitational Series. So we wanted to get as much seat time in the car as we possibly could to understand the car, to know what the car will do on different circumstances, different situations, and work our way out of it.
Absolutely, and obviously a phenomenal drive from yourself from 10th to 1st. Definitely, that's going to be a worthy contender of driver of the day. So well done for taking the victory. I'm sure Jared's going to have the final words for you, but for me, myself personally, that was an incredible drive there from that feature race, from the start to the finish, being patient. We saw Jeremy Washington and Imola, very similar situation as yourself, being patient, waiting for those overtakes, waiting for those mistakes, and you were exactly the same thing, but if not, you took one step further and getting that victory. So from my end, well done, Reese, and solid drive in the feature race.
Thank you very much.
I don't think there's much else to say about such a dominating performance here tonight. Before we let you go, Reese, anyone you'd like to say thank you to and maybe give the sponsors a shout out, because we've seen plenty of your car at the front of the grid tonight.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, I can't do this without my team, Antic Motorsport. We put a lot of effort and a lot of testing sessions in each and every week. So we're always trying to push each other that one step further. So big shout out to Antic Motorsports, our main sponsor Simrigs, Shock Graphics, who create the beautiful liveries that you see on the broadcast. A couple others I'm probably forgetting, but mainly just shouting out the team. Like, it's a big team effort, and I wouldn't be able to do it without them.
Awesome driving again tonight, Reese, and looking forward to chatting to you again soon, I'm sure. We'll let you go and catch up with the team and celebrate tonight's points in the Domains2U GT3 Championship. Congrats again.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks for a brilliant broadcast.
Reese Wakefield taking the win here in race number 2. And really, Nick, an absolutely dominant performance. There's no two ways about it. Nathan Bowman taking P2 and Danny P from Antic Motorsports in position number 3. Jeremy Washington just outside the podium in the end. Let's take a look at what that means for the championship. And of course, this is before bonus points and any penalties, but Reese Wakefield solidifying his position at the top of the table. Jeremy Washington hanging on to position number 2. Daniel Poulton working his way up 3 spots up since last week into P3. Mick Polly retains position 4. Josh Benno, a massive move here tonight with FCR SimSpot, up 8 spots to position 5, with Lachlan Burke, his teammate, moving up 6 as well into position 6. Daniel McCrowan, unfortunately, a really rough night for him, moving him down into P7. And then quite a shake-up, really, you'd have to say, for the rest of the top 10 or 15. And Mitch Curry up 8 spots, James Salhani up 10, Josh Harris up 7, Henry King up 10. So a lot of moves here in round 2. Obviously, still a fair way to go, and of course drop rounds to consider, but the championship's still absolutely wide open at this early stage of the Domains2U GT3 Championship.
It is very wide open, and you will have to keep your eye on Daniel McCrowan. Obviously, the feature race didn't go his way. I didn't really get to ask Danny Poulton about the incident that he had with Daniel McCrowan, whether it was him involved or maybe a little bit of a concertina effect through the chicane, through the Gilles Villeneuve chicane. But obviously, a lot of work to do for the team. Max Boost Acura NSX in position 7, and to really try and come back and find some pace in the next few rounds to come. And obviously, including the drop rounds, he will definitely be up there as a worthy contender in this championship. But you got to give your full shout outs to obviously Josh Bernard and Lockie Burke. They're up 5th and 6th at this current stage, and Danny Poulton to move up 3 positions after a disastrous feature race at Imola last time out, to now finish both races on the podium is a great result there by Antic Motorsports, and that's definitely going to be a huge confidence boost by Danny P when it comes to challenging his good mate and his teammate Reece Wakefield for this championship. But looking down the order as well, we can see a lot of a lot of good moves there, especially Aaron Schotter up in 13th positions, 18 positions gained on 228 points. It's a great mark to get yourself into this championship, and after what was a great drive as well, obviously finishing the rest of that race without front splitter, Jared. So obviously sacrificing a splitter to gain 18 positions in the championship is definitely worthy of a solid drive, a hard achiever there by Aaron Schotter to be up there. But I feel like when it comes to driver of the day, I think I'd mentioned it to Reece Wakefield, and I think it's probably night and day. From 10th position to 1st and winning that sprint race and getting that launch off the start in the sprint and even in the feature as well, looked clear as day as one of the fast drivers here at Zolder. No challenges, no threats from anyone, being patient in the feature race, taking victory in both sprint and feature for me, and taking the clean sweep at Zolder is definitely worthy of a driver of the day moment for him. But not so sure about you, Jared. What do you think? Maybe you might give it to somebody else. Maybe you feel like we're on agreements. You know, commentators, we never agree on a lot of things, so maybe, who knows, you might throw a bit of a surprise amongst our viewers at home.
Look, I wish I could, but tonight's performance was just so dominant from Wakefield that it's hard to look anywhere else. There were certainly a lot of great performances throughout the field this evening, but nothing that stood out quite as much as Reece Wakefield's drive tonight. Look, I don't love giving the driver of the day to someone who wins both the rounds, because it's kind of picking up everything, but look, the drive from Wakefield has been absolutely massive, and so I think well deserved for tonight. We will just have to keep an eye on future rounds to see if anyone can challenge that sort of dominance for the remainder of this season. So I think right there with you, Nick. Massive thank you to you for joining me here in the booth again for this evening's coverage. I think this might be the last time we see you joining us in the booth for the Domains2U GT3 Championship for at least a little while, but a huge thank you for your support, and hoping to see you perhaps in the chat for a few of the future rounds, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do my absolute best to try and jump into the commentary booth when I can. Hopefully my timetable will be able to suit you guys, but we'll have to find out and wait and see, because might throw in a couple of cheeky surprises for you, Jared, so I'll be keeping contact with you. But if it's the last time that you guys hear from me in the MC Motorsports GT3 Championship sponsored by Domains2U, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys jumping into the chat, being amongst the community here at the Simple Racing Broadcast YouTube channel, and also the team at MC Motorsports. I really do hope to get myself back into that commentary booth before the season's end, because this season is going to be absolutely spectacular, and I can't wait to watch every single moment from the comfort of my mobile phone or laptop or computer, or even the TV, watching the stream back and watching you, Jared, producing some quality magic here on the streaming services. So I look forward to the rest of the season, and like I said, I'll be in the chat live and chatting around with you guys, but as well, you may see a sneaky appearance from myself down the track.
Looking forward to it. A massive thank you to Nick Tasso for joining us here in the commentary booth, and on behalf of everyone at Simple Racing Broadcast, a huge thank you to all of you viewing this at home, on your phone, wherever you might be around the world. We appreciate your company. Big shout out to our sponsors, of course, for this season, Domains2U.com.au, the primary sponsor here for the MC Motorsport GT3 Championship, but also supported in no particular order by iRap Designs, by Sixpence Coffee, Everything Simulated, and Max Effort Racing. Great to have some amazing sponsors on board for this season, so got to give them all a shout out for their input, because of course it's what allows all of this to happen week in, week out. We take a break next week, of course being Easter for those who celebrate it. I do hope that you enjoy this particular part of the year. For those who don't celebrate it, perhaps you can pick yourself up some tasty chocolate or whatever the case may be. But we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. We head to Montreal and yet another circuit that promises some very close, very tight racing. So don't miss a single moment of it. Make sure you have subscribed to the channel to keep informed as we go live in just a couple of weeks' time with round number 3. Until then, on behalf of everyone involved, it's been an absolute pleasure to bring this to you again once more this evening. And until next time, do look after yourselves. It is goodbye for now.